First time in history of the phenomenon that we have first-hand eyewitness testimony of direct communication with a captured alien in custody.
This is James Fox, and he is the UFO documentarian. This is the man behind some of the most groundbreaking UFO films ever made, and he is here to pull back the curtain on cases that shake even seasoned investigators. If you are a UFO skeptic, I'm telling you, this is the episode for you. From 1996, the Varginha incident, when the entire town saw a craft crash and military officials were literally talking to each other like, there might be aliens out here, to never before heard audio from witnesses, surgeons, and insiders who claimed that they actually handled the beings themselves.
If I got my hands on the definitive piece of footage, I'd have something to worry about, no question.
When you say the definitive piece of footage?
Footage of a captured alien?
And that exists?
Oh, no question.
And you've spoken to people that have seen it?
Yes, multiple people.
We will explore James's very own UFO encounter, his method for separating truth from noise, and why high-level figures from Jimmy Carter to President Gerald Ford privately admitted he might be onto something. We're talking about Spielberg cameos, astronauts hinting at hidden contact, Bob Lazar's lingering questions, nuclear-era sightings, and what disclosure might actually look like and when it might happen. James Fox has spent decades getting the stories that nobody else can. He's probably talked to more UFO experiencers than anyone on Earth, and today he's sharing all of them with us. So, sit back, relax, and welcome to camp. James Fox, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for joining me in my tent.
I like it.
Yeah, this is
it's a warm tent.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Deep in the,
as far as tents go.
Yeah, in the Adirondacks. We're far, far away from civilization. Not in Brooklyn at all. No. We are far.
This is literally going to be intense.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a really big fan. I've been tracking you for a while, and I've spoken to many people that have spoken about you. And as I said before, they're all everyone speaks very highly of you. And your work, I think, has been...
That's because I owe them a lot of money.
Yeah, that'll do it. Yeah. Give it enough time.
Wait till they get paid.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. And then the tune will change a little. But no, I'm a really big fan, and I think the way that you tell stories around this topic is probably the most effective, I think, in sort of like the whole UAP disclosure community. Just the way that you sort of break down information and sort of... kind of paint the narrative, I think is really easy for lay people, like myself that are not, reading secret leaked memos and stuff, just to be able to get up to speed on everything. And you've done a bunch of documentaries that have kind of highlighted different aspects of, I guess, of the phenomena. And the one that's coming out, when is it coming out?
December 22nd.
Amazing. Yeah. This is about a kind of a follow-up to this incident in Brazil.
Yes, they call it the Roswell of Brazil.
The Roswell of Brazil. This is one of the more, I don't know, it's very interesting, and there's so much information around it, but it feels more real in a sense. Like the amount of eyewitness testimony and the way people describe the incident feels like, I don't know, sometimes you hear about stuff in America and it's like, okay, there's one memo where there's like a line, but this is a whole community that basically was involved in this event. And you're going to have to help me with the pronunciation, the Varginha incident. Mm-hmm. Can you explain more or less what this is and how this came across your radar and what made you interested in it in the first place?
Absolutely. So let's start off by saying I don't expect your audience to believe anything I'm about to tell you. Because if I were you, I wouldn't.
Fair.
Okay? Having said that, I was making my second UFO documentary in the late 90s. It ended up being called Out of the Blue. I never have a title for my films when I start. The title comes to you at some point. Yeah. You'll know when it's like the right thing. And what I do at the beginning of every film project, I don't do like big, intricate proposals or like, whole multi-pages. I do broad strokes. It's like, okay, usually on a chalkboard, it's like, all right, let's look at this case. Let's check out the Bentwaters case, Phoenix Lights, 1997, and kind of map it out that way. And then we just target those particular cases, and then we stitch it together at the end. And we're going through the various ideas, and I was working with this guy who's British. He was a former BBC correspondent. His name was Tim Coleman. A lot of respect, super intelligent, diligent researcher. And he's like, oh, mate, I think we should do this case in Brazil. These fucking live aliens walking around and da-da-da. And I just thought to myself, oh my God, this guy's crazy. Like, I'm going to I think I picked the wrong partner. I really did. And not only did I not look into it, when I was making my second UFO documentary, I refused to even read one thing about it.
And
Like,
why?
I,
Why? It just felt
because I
too
was like, this is
outlandish?
impossible. It's
Mm.
impossible. There's no way a fucking UFO can crash and live aliens be walking around the town and the whole world not know about it.
Right.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to waste 1 second on garbage. Like, that's literally what my position was. And fast forward probably, and I refused to look into it. And I said, Tim, that's the worst idea ever. I'm not touching that thing with a 50-foot cattle prod. Forget it. And he was really pissed off at me at the time. Like, he took it a little personally. So fast forward, like, probably at least 10 years, I'm saying. And I'm going to Brazil. I get invited to Brazil on a film I did. I Know What I Saw. It was a 2-hour History Channel special. And a buddy of mine, Jeff Sagansky, was very high up in the entertainment industry. He's been very instrumental behind the scenes of, like, helping me promote my work, but without his face on it, like, very quietly behind me. And there's reasons for that. But he goes, oh, James, you're going to Brazil. Oh, my God, you got to look into the Varginha case. And I was like, oh, my God, not this case again. This again. I was like, but I had a lot of respect for him, and he did a lot of amazing stuff for me behind the scenes. So I lied to him, and I said, Jeff, yeah, when I get there, I'll look into it for you, and I'll report back. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, click. Yeah, I'm not going to waste 1 second on that case. Then I arrive in Brazil, and I just happened to be in this place called Peruíbe, which is like, apparently there's like this island right off the coast that you can see it. And there's like this really poisonous snake that its venom is worth a lot of money, but poachers will go, and it's not allowed, and no one's allowed on that island, but you can see it from the shore. And I'm sitting there, and Stanton Friedman, the nuclear physicist, the guy that pretty much put Roswell on the map, along with a couple of other people, talking with Stanton, and we're commenting on this like poisonous snake, and some of the locals are like, yeah, some poachers go out there, and then the snakes drop out of the trees, and there's a bunch of dead poachers, and we're just like, oh my God. And then it was like, someone's like, well, there was a guy, a military officer, who allegedly handled the alien here in Varginha, who also died of some sort of bacterial thing. And I was like, oh my God, here was this case again, right? And Stanton, and I was like, come on, Stanton. Stanton's like, you don't know about this case? And I was like, well, yeah, I know about it, but come on, like that. And he goes, not so fast, James. And I had a lot of respect for this. He's a nuclear physicist. He's really smart researcher. He just so happened to be in the area when it happened in Brazil, and he met a bunch of the witnesses at the time. And he goes, don't dismiss this case. You should look into it. And that was a turning point for me. It's like, all right, I know I'm going to debunk it. I know it's going to turn out to be a bunch of hogwash, but I'll look into it. Okay, finally, after 12, whatever it was, I said, okay, I'll look into it.
And then Stanton just happened to be there?
He was invited as well. He was invited as well to this event.
I see.
Yeah. And so, yeah, sorry, I meant to mention that. Yeah, we're as panelists on this one event.
I see, but he was there during Varginha.
He was in the area either like months after or like, yeah, but he met a bunch of the witnesses.
I see.
Like he was there, and he's like, oh yeah. He goes, I think this is going to be the Roswell of Brazil. This is like a lot, because so many people saw something,
Right.
like military activity, the creatures, the UFO in distress. Like, I mean, it was like a lot of people had a little piece of the puzzle, or like, oh, my cousin was involved, or my mom saw this, or I had people working at the hospital that night. Like, holy shit, something went down.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking into it. And the more I looked into it, I was like, shit, this might have happened, right? And so probably 2 or 3 years into it, I got an interview with this military general, Brazilian military general. I was with my buddy Marco Leal. He's French. We're like partners, and we get this interview with José Carlos Pereira, and he's a Brazilian general, Air Force general, and he's like, before the interview, he's like, hey, we could talk about this, we could talk about Claris, we could talk about 1986 UFOs in Brazil. You mentioned Varginha, and this interview's done, and I'm walking out of here. It's like, what? So I was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Why would he do that? So we do the interview, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, when the cameras stop, I'm gonna really pin this guy down, And so we do the interview, and he talks about all the things he's going to talk about, and at the end, the cameras shut down, and Marco was right there with me, and I was like, looked him in the eyes, and I said, come on, please, General, please, what's going on? Like, why don't you want to talk about this case? Like, did it happen? He's getting his affairs together because he's got a driver waiting for him. Excuse me. And And he's like, gets his briefcase and he's getting his stuff together and he's clearly like getting prepared to leave. And we're following him back. And I often describe it as like I was almost licking the dirt off his boots. Like I was begging him just for something. And I said, I swear on my life, there are no cameras rolling. There's no audio rolling. This is between the three of us, me, Marco, and you. Tell me, please, about Varginha, please. He gets in the car, sits down, the engine's running, doors open. Marco and I are standing right there. And he looks up at us and he goes, it happened. Click. Marco and I looked at each other like, like to have that level of confirmation. And why would he make that up?
Yeah.
So that doesn't go in a movie, right? Because that's irrelevant. Everyone would say, well, it's third party. Of course. But for me and for Marco, that was like, okay, let's rock.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
You know?
You got military confirmation. You got nuclear physicists that are like,
look into it.
Close friends being like,
Yes.
check it out.
Yes.
So all of this is culminating to
Yes.
you being like, okay.
Yeah, I'm really starting to go, shit.
And you're telling this general, you're like, I'll never tell anyone. I'm not going to go on a podcast
He
to
died.
share this information. Okay.
He died. So
And
that's
so
why,
now
that's
we can
why I share it. Yeah. Yeah, he died. Bless his heart.
Right.
Yeah.
And his demeanor during this interview was pretty.
Oh, he was like, UFOs are real. Like this event happened and this event happened and da-da-da. And the reason why we can't say is because, you know, you can't have objects of unknown origin whizzing around with impunity.
Right.
And for us to come forward and acknowledge that, it's going to scare the shit out of people.
Right.
Like, and to be able to say, like, yeah, they're here, but we don't know origins and intent.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And they fly rings around our fastest jets. Because no governing body is going to want to report that to the citizens. Are you kidding me?
Right.
You guys pay us to protect you. And we can't, shall they turn to be hostile? We have no visible means of defense against them. You think we're going to disclose that nature of information? Guess what he said to me? He goes, hell no. No, we don't do that.
Interesting.
Why would you do that? How are we going to benefit by doing that?
Right.
Because you reveal what you know, and in doing so, you have to reveal all things that you don't know.
Yeah, you basically just kind of admit, you know, like, hey, we are not able to.
We're not in control.
We're not in control. Yeah, and that's a big issue for
That's
a government.
A very big issue.
Yeah, you have rebellion, and yeah, that's gonna just in terms of statecraft, that is a terrible admission.
And it makes perfectly good sense because I remember one time I used to always say, and I still do in some respects because I believe it, but I understand a little more. I hate to say it, but there are certain national security issues regarding this topic that does merit some levels of secrecy.
Mm-hmm.
And I give you examples of that. But I had this general I was interviewing one time, and I was like, God, we're really unifying, and the world brings people together, and there's this outside, you know, and he's just like chuckling to himself, like you're so naive, kid, like you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Let me break it down for you. And then he like kind of explained it to me, and I was like, shit, I never looked at it that way before.
Yeah, I can kind of understand both sides in a way.
Yeah,
right?
and I don't agree with it, but I understand.
Right.
It. And especially if you start talking about crash retrievals. Just imagine, whether you believe it or you don't believe it, just imagine for a moment it is true that we have this technology. Well, anyone will tell you the technology observed in the sky from these things exhibits something that's like so far beyond anything that we have or have had or going to have. Like they can hover, they can accelerate out of sight in the blink of an eye, right angle turns at high speed. Like they go through the water, they go, no wings, no air disturbance, no visible How do these things fly?
Yeah.
Could you put a bomb on that? If you could harness that technology, well, that's how they think, militarize this technology. And if we have it, we want to make sure we figure it out before the Chinese or the Russians.
Right.
Right.
I can understand the national security concern, right? Like War of the Worlds, this radio broadcast that went off in like the 50s, I think.
30s, 38 or 39.
Oh, it was even earlier.
Yeah.
So this is basically
Orson Welles, hella funny.
Yeah, and
people were jumping out of their windows.
This is a great example, right?
Yeah.
You're doing this what is it, like a radio soap opera kind of thing, and it's a fictionalized alien invasion, but they only disclosed that it was fictional at the very beginning. So people are tuning in.
And they missed it.
5 minutes in.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, we have our ground reporter, and he's witnessing these lights in the sky, and this craft is landing in, Times Square, and it's this whole thing, and people are in panic. Rightly so.
Totally.
And
brilliantly done. I mean, it was really, really compelling.
Right.
Like if you listen to it now, like a lot of thought went into that. I mean, it sounded real.
And the reaction was equally as real. And I could understand that if this stuff was disclosed to a population, people would be really freaked out. So I understand this push for disclosure, but like any type of, classified, government document, I don't know, from a state level, you have to think, like, does the public benefit from knowing all of this, right? Like the JFK files or the Epstein files or whatever else it is. It's like, look, every empire does things that are, morally questionable. Do you guys really want to know everything? Do you really want to know what kind of backdoor deal we're doing with some dictator in order to get oil rights or something like that? It's like, basically they're saying it's better if you don't know. And of course, I understand the disagreement on this, but
Jacques Vallée said that something really interesting to me years ago, because I was like, because I'm really curious by nature. I'm just a curious person. I want to get to the bottom of things, right? Tenacious. I have a lot of deficiencies, but curiosity is not one of them. I just really want to know. And I was like, Jacques, like, why the secrecy? Like, And he goes, James, think of it this way. Think about it like it's more of a question, less of a question of what we know, is more of a question of what we don't know. And it really, like, struck a chord with me. It's like, oh, we can admit what we know, but that's going to open up all these other. Could you imagine, like, if they stood up and said what they know,
right?
And then all of a sudden there's going to be 100 million questions flooding in from around the world because, the American government, sure, America represents a very small percentage of the world population, but the implications are global.
Yeah.
So it's like it affects every religion, ontological shock, like, to the max.
Right.
And then America's going to start making statements that we have this stuff, it's real, we're not alone. Well, you better cough up some evidence, right? So what are they going to do? Are they going to give us the technology? Are they going to show us the bodies? How are they going to do it? Are they going to say, well, here, we're going to give you some photographs of some recovered craft? And then they're going to say, well, that's AI. We don't believe that. We need to see it. And then it's like, implications are global. So do we bring a whole panel of international scientists to come examine it in a lab and confirm, yeah, I saw it and it's real and Americans do have it? Or do they bring out a body? How do they do it? And how do they do it without having to cough up the goods?
Right.
Because they're not going to share that technology with China or Russia.
Of course.
That's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I always remember talking to military folks, intel folks, they're like, James, it's never going to happen. We might confess that we're not alone, but then how do they prove that without coughing up the goods? It's a really complicated situation. It's way more complex than I ever imagined. You can't just get the president of the United States, which half the country hates, right? No matter who it is. And so he's going to get up and say, hey, my fellow Americans, it has been brought to my attention that, we're not alone, whatever, right? However he says it. All right, well, where's the proof?
What's up, guys? We're going to take a break really quick because I got to tell you a story. Imagine you're sitting in your house. It's cold outside. It's a little snowy. And you're like, man, I just want a panini. So you go and you order it, from DoorDash or something like that. And it never gets to you. You're looking at the app. You're like, dude, it's been 4 hours. Where's my panini? You're calling. No one answers. Well, this is a true story that happened. There was a woman, a client, that was working as a DoorDash driver, and she slipped and fell on an icy walkway outside of a Panera Bread in Fort Wayne, Indiana. She breaks her elbow, which leads to surgery and hardware having to get inserted into her arm. She can't work. And originally, she sues Panera, and Panera's like, okay, we'll give you like $125,000. But then the good people over at Morgan & Morgan fought for her and got her the $1 million verdict that she deserved. Yes. If you never heard of them, Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. Yes, and they're that way for a reason. They've been fighting for the people for over 35 years. Now, I'll be honest, if I ordered, a panini and the woman gets paid $1 million because she slipped, it's a tragic thing to happen, of course, but I deserve a little bit of that. I should get a cut at least, right? I'm the one that ordered the panini. If I never ordered that panini, she never would have slipped, never got $1 million, which obviously she deserved. You know what I mean? But maybe next time she gets $1 million and $1.1 million, I can get a cool 100,000 out of that. Regardless, all I'm saying is if you're ever injured and you are looking to get the money that you deserved, the compensation that is entitled to you from your injuries, Morgan & Morgan could be the way to go. Hiring the wrong law firm can be disastrous. You can be locked up in litigation. It's a nightmare. But hiring the right law firm could substantially increase your settlement. And with Morgan & Morgan, it's easy to get started. Their fee is $0 unless they win. That's right. Their fee is free unless they win your case. You don't pay you pay 0 cents
unless they win your case. You can visit forthepeople.com/Gagnon, Gagnon. That is FORthepeople.com/Gagnon, or dial #law, that's #529 from your cell phone. That's forthepeople.com/Gagnon, or click the link in the description below. And thank you so much to the good folks over at Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring this program and making this show possible with this paid advertisement. Well, let's get back to the show.
And then there's also like an inverse element of the disclosure argument where it's like, if this is brought up without any sort of definitive proof, because we don't want to, reveal all the tech, et cetera, that you're going to have a contingent of the, UAP community or the disclosure community saying, oh, well, this is a psyop.
Totally.
Like, aliens are actually fake. This is not real at all. And this is a plan for a one world government, which I've seen people even like kind of flirting with now. They're like, oh, they're going to do disclosure, but it's going to be a fake disclosure.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, so there's a whole contingent of the community like pushing for disclosure, but then once it happens, it's actually not real.
Well, so, I see this online all the time. Man, I see people accusing like Lou Elizondo or Christopher Mellon, who I know these both very well. I go to their homes, meet their wives, hang out. And I sit there and I'm like, okay, so how do I know this isn't a psyop? Because everything that they're saying aligns with my 30 plus years in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've been around the world, China and Russia and Australia, Africa, South America, you're all over investigating the phenomenon. Every single word they say aligns exactly with my research in the field, right? So I'm like, okay, well, they're not saying anything that's ringing any alarm bells for me. No red flags that I can see. This is exactly if I was going to disclose and I was in their position. In fact, some of it's even greater detail. And I'm learning from it. So that's why I support that movement, because what are they saying that's not true? I mean, they use the threat aspect, but the only reason why they do that is because that gets the attention of Congress. Because if you have the Tic Tac, for instance, right? Like, if that had a Russian flag on it, it would be all hands on deck.
Right.
It doesn't have any identifying markings on it, but if it did, but you get the attention of Congress, like, hey, we're in these flight range areas or maybe over super secret military installations housing nuclear weapons, and you've got these unknowns coming and going at their will, and we can't do anything to stop it. That is a national security. What is it? Well, it's not displaying any hostility now, but is it? Are we under surveillance? Like, what? Who is this?
Yeah.
And we need to know those things.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, how do you approach this because I at least in speaking with you and seeing some of the docs, like, I feel a resonance where you kind of approach things with like a healthy skepticism, but a vigorous curiosity, which is sort of how I feel, I think. And I don't want to misalign the way that you actually feel, but I look at different pieces of information and evidence with different levels of scrutiny. So like government docs, I find interesting and more compelling. I find personal testimony very emotionally moving, but difficult to verify because it's anecdotal. And then there's like the whistleblower contingent that is kind of both. So I'm curious, when you're looking at the plethora of evidence and different pieces of information, how do you try to wrap your head around it, and what do you find to be the most compelling evidence for the existence of these sort of anomalous objects?
So, I mean, what I know, obviously, what we have access to among civilians, right? Stuff that's leaked out, stuff that's slipped between the cracks. And believe me, some stuff has, but the vast majority has not. It's unbelievable. The better the evidence, the more compelling the data, the less likely the public's ever going to see it. And that's just around the world. We have radar confirmation, right? That's come out. Let me pick a case. I mean, I'll pick this one case. I think it was 1986 over Alaska JAL flight. There were two pilots, and they had a very dramatic encounter with a colossal size UFO. I mean, it was just huge. And there was an FAA official, John Callahan, and he had kept all the radar data. The CIA tried to shut it all down. They had a meeting, and they confiscated everything, but he's like, I kept copies. And he kept copies of everything, the voice recordings or during the encounter, the radar, ground radar, the plane's radar, like, he had it all. That's pretty compelling data. Right? I mean, you can just say, oh, that's all anecdotal. No, it's not actually. You've got two witnesses. You've got all the radar data. You've got the sound recordings, like, missing a photograph in that particular case, but very compelling data. So you've got
incredible witnesses.
Incredible witnesses that are pilots. It's a very long duration of the sighting. The government tries to squash the whole thing. And so that's one. Then we've got photographic evidence I mean, I'll give one in particular that we could talk about right now if you want it. I think it's one of the best photographs ever. And it was buried for over almost, 30 years.
Is this Nick Pope?
Yeah, well, this is the Calvine 1990 UFO. And I had heard about that almost 20 years ago. Probably was 20 years ago. And because I was like, I pulled Nick Pope aside, and I've been interviewing Nick Pope since he was still at the MOD in the late 90s. So Nick and I go way back. So I pulled Nick aside and like, Nick, what's the coolest case you ever investigated, you know? And he'd be like, there's this one case in Scotland and 6 photographs and a military jet and broad daylight, points of reference, 2 witnesses. I'm like, holy, where's that photograph? He goes, we made a big poster of it. And we just had it on the wall at MOD. And they're sitting there telling us, yeah, there it is. Yeah. And what makes this photograph so extraordinary is it's broad daylight, right? You got 2 witnesses. The MOD went at great lengths, and the Americans were involved as well. They squashed this story. And the only reason why we have this photograph today is because there was a guy named Craig Lindsay. And the guy responsible for putting it on is in my film, The Program. But Craig Lindsay was an RAF press officer. And he gets a call from the local newspaper. And they're like, hey, what do you make of this this UFO photograph or whatever that's making the round? Whatever. And he's like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. And so the local newspaper like, oh, well, you haven't seen it? It's like, no, I haven't. Why would I have seen it? No, I haven't seen it. So they make a print, big one, 8x10 or whatever, and they send it to Craig Lindsay. He's like, holy shit. Like, this isn't any normal UFO photograph I've ever seen. Normally it's a little blurry, you know. This is like broad daylight, points of reference, military jet going around. And according to Craig Lindsay, there were 6 shots. And David Clark, if he's listening out there, thanks to him and all of his diligent hard work, this leaked out. But so Craig Lindsay gets like a call to investigate. He goes and meets with the witnesses. He talks with them, and they tell him like, you know, this thing didn't make any noise. We were out hiking. They were actually terrified. It was like this diamond-shaped object, right, hovering silently right over their heads, like really close. And they didn't know what the hell they were looking at, these 2 witnesses. And then a military jet flies in and circles it, goes all the way around it. And they, at that point, got enough courage and they took 6 shots. And so every shot, according to Craig Lindsay, and he's seen all 6 of them, is the jet, which is a Harrier jump jet, was in a different position going around it. So I tell you, whoever was flying that, if you're listening, come forward, please. Whoever's flying that probably got some pretty good data.
Yeah.
You know, and a good visual. Can you imagine?
Right.
And so these 2 guys took their story to the local paper, Scotland Daily Record, I believe it was, and they're going to go worldwide with it. And the MOD stepped in. Craig Lindsay started doing some preliminary investigations, and then they just shut it down. The 2 witnesses vanished forever. To this day, nobody knows where they are. The prints were confiscated.
Yeah, the negatives of their photographs were
all
taken.
gone. Everything's gone. Okay, and so Craig Lindsay, who the local newspaper had sent him that one print, and he kept it all the way through his retirement. And then David Clark, who's investigating the case, he said there was a redacted document that came out. It said such and such blank, crossed out, redacted, at RAF, Scotland in 1990, RAF Scotland. He just go, oh, that's Craig Lindsay. So he contacts Craig Lindsay. Long story short, I don't know, it was 1 year or 2 years or however much time went by. Craig finds the photograph and decides they're going to go public with it. And that is why that picture, just give you an example, like this is the one they did everything in their power to shut it down. Richard Greaves was friends with the 2 photographers that took it, and he just came forward recently. He's in my film, The Program. And because we didn't know, like, where did they go? Why they wanted to go public and all of a sudden they're gone? Like, that doesn't make any sense. What happened?
Yeah.
You know? So Richard Grieve, hopefully I pronounced his name correctly. One time he was like, mate, you're not pronouncing my name right. I'm like, sorry. I think he's like, it's Grieve, not Greaves. Grieve. Grieve.
We're Americans, all right? We do our best.
Why?
We do our best.
Fucking ghost. That's what he said. So he said they're out on a cigarette break. A couple days after this whole thing went down, they're out on a cigarette break at the restaurant they worked at, the hotel in Scotland, not far from Calvine. I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes away. And this car rolls up, and two shadowy figures get out of the car. And he said the driver stays in the car, and he was smoking a cigarette with the windows rolled up. And these two shadowy characters come out, and it's pissing rain. And they were on their cigarette break, and they're all outside having a cigarette break. And he said, cigarette break's over. You go back inside, and kept the two witnesses out there. And they're like, he said he went inside, and he was looking out in the pissing rain, these two men in suits talking to the two witnesses. He said they came inside. He goes, they were white as a fucking ghost. He's like, I don't know what they said to them, but basically that was it. They started drinking heavily. They were sleeping in their cars at work, and then they both vanished, never to be seen or heard from to this day ever again.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's the Men in Black. And I say the Men in Black because, it's got a lot of baggage. The MIB's got a lot of baggage. But if I had a dime for every time I've heard those stories prior to me reporting on them, I'd be a gazillionaire. But I was always like, this men in, especially when the movie came out, I call them men in dark suits. They show up around the world every time. They're always American, mostly. They're intimidating looking. What organization are they with? Are they with OSI? I've been trying to find that out recently. I don't know. But they will show up no matter where it is, particularly if there's good evidence.
Really?
They shut this one down. That leaked out. Can you imagine how much data that we actually have? They did everything in their power to keep this photograph from coming out.
Now, the gentleman that leaked it, you said his name was?
Craig Lindsay, RAF press officer.
Was there
He didn't
ever...
exactly. David Clark actually got him to leak it. But
Was there ever any recourse for these two gentlemen that...
no, they went pretty public, and it was 30 years later. So, But he was concerned, for sure. He was concerned. And to this day, Nick Pope, there's certain things he can say and certain things he can't say.
Right.
But you read between the lines of what he is saying. He's like, we shut this down. We shut it down.
Now, why does this not move people? Like, you hear about this story, there seems like there's, at least corollary evidence with what's happening, and then a photograph leaks many years later. But still, like, why is this not front page news? Why are people immediately not like, well, there's this?
That's an interesting point. And I'm going to reference one time when I was interviewing some witnesses for the Phoenix Lights case. I don't know if your audience is familiar, but March 13th, 1997, there was a massive UFO flyover. There were multiple UFOs, orb-shaped UFOs, boomerang-shaped UFO was but roughly 2 miles across. I know this because I interviewed a lot of the witnesses, including the governor, Fife Symington, at the time. And I went for 10 years investigating that case, back and forth, new witnesses coming forward constantly. I was like, man, this is a crazy... We had witnesses that were like out on the front lawns, lying on their backs, watching this boomerang-shaped UFO that was silent. It didn't have any air disturbance. They said, had I not looked up, I wouldn't have even known it was there. They're looking at compartments, and as it hovered, we thought it was going to land. I mean, it was just so big. And it took several minutes to pass over as we lay under, So I talked to the governor, Fife Symington. He saw it when he was governor.
Really?
Yeah, and he goes, man, that thing was not from this earth. I said, he goes, I'm a Air Force, I'm a pilot in the Air Force. He goes, I said, well, how do you know this thing was not from here? The governor goes, the size of the damn thing. Like, it was huge. You could land an airplane on it. So, but let me tell you, so I'm interviewing 5 or 6 hospice workers that were out having tea under the night sky in March 13th, 1997. And they said, we're just, sitting outside having tea, discussing our patients and that thing flies over the top of them, right? And they sitting in the garden, they looked up and they watched it. Like they said, it took a couple minutes and it just floated. They said it looked like a little city, little compartments. You could see the whole thing and it floated. And I said, did you guys think about grabbing a camera, calling 911, getting in your car, chasing after it? And they went, no. You didn't? No? What did you do? Well, we just went back to having tea. What? I couldn't wrap my mind around that. But then I realized sometimes it's just too much to process. Like, did we really see that? Did we not see that? Can we just treat that like a non-event? Like paralysis, like almost like, oh, and then right back to what they're doing. And that was a kind of a turning point for me, because I'm sitting there going, we got David Grutsch, that high-level intelligence official who testifies under oath in 2023. And I know people are frustrated because they're like, give me the details. You can't be making these extraordinary claims and not providing the evidence. Well, he was providing evidence behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly the ICIG, Thomas Monheim was getting the details, street addresses, and where's the due diligence with the media? Like, okay, so you don't believe the guy? Prove him wrong.
Right.
Get out there and do some digging. Jack diddly squat. Like so little reporting on what could be. And you don't have to believe it. Prove him wrong. That's what you should do. Contact the former ICIG. Talk to him about the details. What is it going to take to get these various people that are making these extraordinary claims to come forward and give us the details needed to verify those claims? Because the implications are so profound. Why would we not do that?
Right.
Why would we not try to create a platform for these people to prove them wrong? Like, let's figure out what kind of executive order needs to come down to give these guys immunity so we can tell the public the truth. Like, why aren't they even trying to do that? To me, it's like, duh. Like, let's get, it's too important of a story not to.
What would proving them wrong look like?
What would what?
What, like proving someone like David Grutsch wrong?
Well, you'd have to figure out how to create an environment to get those details. Because you're making these extraordinary claims, and yet you're not giving us enough details to prove or disprove what you're saying, right? And that's frustrating. I get it. And people are frustrated. But I remind people, we've had 4 open congressional hearings in the last couple of years. 4 open congressional. Prior to that, it was 1966. Like, progress is being made. People are making these allegations, not 1, not 2, not 3, multiple. And especially now with Age of Disclosure, Dan Ferris film. That's got 34 high-level military and government officials, including Marco Rubio.
Right.
Talking about a crash retrieval program. Hello? Like, are people not paying attention, or is this just ontological shock? Like, it can't be, therefore it isn't.
Right. Yes.
I don't know.
And so, but he's, like, Grutsch is doing, like, closed hearings.
Oh, 100%. Yes. I talked to Burleson. I talked to Congressman Burleson the other day at the last congressional hearing that I attended. And I was like, did you finally get into a skiff with Grutsch? He goes, oh, yeah. Yeah, we did. He goes, I walked out of that with a different look on life.
Really?
Yeah. That's just happened. Yeah.
That is fascinating.
So it's happening. It's happening right now. And I remember talking to people that were in the skiff. I guess I could use his name because he's in the movie. Kirk McConnell, Senate Armed Services Committee, investigating UFOs in physical capacity, looking for the crash retrieval program, blah, 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 blah. And he sat in with senators. I know what senators were in the skiff with him, and I know some of the details that were given, and it's like street addresses. This is who has it. This is where it is. This is where the labs are. Yeah, these are the names. I'm working on it myself. I'm down in the lab. First-handers.
Wow.
Maybe 12 so far, maybe more. But people are first-handers, not no, my cousin. I'm working on it. Yeah.
Looking at the actual retrievals.
I'm working on it with my own hands, yes.
Wow.
I would think it's somewhere between 7 and 12. I didn't get an exact number on it. That's happening right now.
Now, the people that you speak with, speaking with people that have experienced UFOs in like very close capacity by their own testimony, they describe like feelings. They'll say like, I saw this craft and I felt euphoria, or I felt this overwhelming feeling of like calm. Like they just describe sort of like this sort of like ethereal kind of experience.
Yeah.
I'm curious, in the people you spoke to, maybe in the Phoenix case or any of these other cases, do they describe a similar thing?
Okay, so that's a really good question. And I'm going to give you an example of that. So I interviewed this guy named Trig Johnson, and he was a pilot, I think Northwest Airlines at the time. And he had a really good sighting. Because, a lot of UFO sightings, you get people, I saw this blurry, they're not these. This is a floating city. Almost could hit it with a rock. I mean, it was right there, and I watched it for 10 minutes or whatever. Trig Johnson tells me this is extraordinary. He was with his son. I interviewed them both. And he goes, there's one more thing. And he was like this rough and tough, pragmatic cowboy, cowboy hat, like just super grounded, nuts and bolts kind of guy.
Knows what's going on. In
totally.
Control.
Yeah. And he's like, there's one more thing. And I was like, what? I don't want to fucking talk about it like this. And I was like, no, Trig, I want to hear it. Like, tell me. No, I don't know. And so I said, look, man, I'm going to take you seriously. This is what I do for a living. I hear all kinds of crazy stuff. Bring it. Give it to me. It said something to me. And he knew, like, the optics of that. Like, he knew, because he himself would be the guy that goes, this is a bunch of woo-woo.
Yeah, you talk to aliens. All right.
Exactly. Yeah. And he said, no, He goes, all right, it said something like that. And I was like, well, what did it say? And he said, we're here in peace. We mean you no harm, something like that. Yeah. But that was like, that was the first time like I really got that level of communication with someone I really believed. And I was like, then I've heard, of course, I've heard 1,000 more since then. But
And was it telepathic, this communication?
telepathic, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And did he describe feeling like calm?
Yeah. We're not here to harm you. We come in peace. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was, the implication was we're not harmful. We're not here to, yeah.
And this sighting was in his aircraft, or was he on the ground?
On the ground. 1997, March 13th.
Wow.
Phoenix, Arizona. That craft went from the north, started off in Nevada, but it went all the way down through the state of Arizona, all the way down to the south. And then it disappeared off the Barry Goldwater mountain range. Maybe about 9:30, 10 o'clock, something like that. But anyway, and everybody at the time was out to get a glimpse of the Hale-Bopp comet. So people were outside trying to look at the Hale-Bopp comet. That's why it was seen by so many people, because they were like out there trying to get,
Interesting.
So it was seen by thousands. It was a really good case, mass sighting. And you ask about like what cases I like to focus on. Like I like multi-witness cases. I like cases, particularly in broad daylight, if I can get them, but multiple people. Like Rua, Zimbabwe, 1994. There were roughly 100 school children out, 10:30 in the morning. The object comes down, it lands, and I remember when I was doing reporting on that for the phenomenon, I had this guy, Larry, big gold chains, like he was helping do some funny. He goes, James, you mean to tell me a UFO came down and landed in a goddamn school? No, I'm not spending a dime on this case. I said, Larry, just stop, please. No, listen to because there was a Harvard psychiatrist by the name of Dr. John Mack, and he had gone there right after it happened, and he documented all these kids.
I did an interview, and
he did 66 kids. That's why they always say it's 66. It was more than 66. I went there. I talked to the teachers. There were like 100, but 66 went on camera, and I said, no, Gary, I know, because I heard about that case, and that one I also dismissed because when I was working on my first UFO documentary in the 90s, in the mid 90s, I was just naive enough, young and dumb enough to think, well, I get an interview with Steven Spielberg, of course, like why not? And I had a mutual friend that I knew that knew him, Janet Yang, and she goes, well, he actually said he's not going to meet with you and he's not going to go on camera, but he does want you to know there's a landing case that happened in Africa in Rua, Zimbabwe at the school. You should look into it. And I thought to myself, it came from Spielberg, right? But a UFO landing at a school and come on, please. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Really?
This is
and the
post
aliens came
ET?
out.
Like the film?
Yeah.
So you're like, all right, this is...
Well, yeah. I was like, I'm not going to, no. Mm-mm. And I just, 10 years, I didn't even look into it for 10 years. Like, because it can't be, therefore it isn't. Like, my whole philosophy was, how could you have an event like that and the whole world not know about it? You can't have a landing at school. That's contact. Right? So, no. And now I've learned to suspend judgment. Just, suspend judgment, listen to the witnesses, and then draw my own conclusions. And from there, because every time I've dismissed a case, there were some cases that deservedly got dismissed, but I've learned like, oh my gosh, I ended up doing extensive reporting on it.
What's up, guys? We're going to take a break really quick because you need help pitching your tents. Yes, and that's what we do over here at camp. Maybe you're, in line waiting for a concert somewhere and you just need something to lean on. Who knows? Maybe you just need help pleasing the special man or woman in your life. And that's why I want to talk to you guys about Blue Chew. Blue Chew is the ultimate service to get you discreet supplements right to your home. And what do these supplements do? They give you that leg, that third leg, the important one. And Blue Chew is going to help you lay it down, okay? It's an amazing service that's coming straight to your door. And for the listeners of this very program, they are going to get their first month of Blue Chew for free. All you need to use is the promo code GAGNON, GAGNON. And you'll have them gagging. I'm talking about, I'm saying, my boy. So go to bluechew.com and try the promo code GAGNON, GAGNON, and you're going to get your first month free. All you got to do is pay $5 for shipping. That's like a coffee, okay? So to skip your morning cold brew and instead get that hard brew for an entire month. Yes, that is at bluechew.com. Use the promo code GAGNON and start laying it down like they deserve. Let's get back to the show.
Yeah, the Zimbabwe case is so interesting because it's how do you get 66 kids to lie
Yeah.
in such specificity?
Yeah.
Like, again, children have imaginations. I get it. But, kids have they have a kind of a raw honesty, right? Like,
well,
I think about, remember the Balloon Boy case? Remember this? Like, there was a
he
kid that
strapped
he got taken off in, like, this giant sort of, like, balloon thing, and they flew around, and then they found out that the kid was actually,
he wasn't in it.
He wasn't in it at all.
Right, but they thought he was in it, and they were
and the way they disclosed it is that they're interviewing the family on TV, and they're asking them, like, oh, like, how did this happen? You thought the kid was in it, but actually he wasn't. And then the kid basically just says, like, oh, my dad told me to hide in the basement.
Oh my!
So that
God.
it could be a news story. But the child is so honest and so innocent that his dad was basically trying to fake something, and the honesty broke through. And in this case, you would imagine like one of the kids would be like, well, my teacher told me to make this up so that our school would be on TV, or whatever the rationale for making all of these children lie about this sighting.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't seem like any of them broke with what the narrative of what they saw was.
So this is interesting because with the help of Randall Nickerson, I brought all the kids, a lot of the primary witnesses together for the first time in 20 years, and we filmed for the phenomenon. And one of the witnesses, Emma, and I know there were others, she said, well, I've got to tell my husband. I said, tell your husband what? She's like, about the incident. I said, you're married and you have kids, and you didn't tell your husband about this? What?
You think that'd be first date, right?
Yeah, right. Or second. Yeah. And she's like, no, I was just got tired of defending it.
Wow.
So it's like, you're bottling that up, and everything that she saw 20 years ago that's on tape is exactly the same thing now and exactly the same thing today.
Mm-hmm.
With everything to lose and nothing to gain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why on earth? This is like such a, it's becoming a little more acceptable. And, but paralleling that, one thing I will say kind of behind the scenes is that when I talk about Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and people look at me sideways, and rightfully so, I guess. I have to say, well, that doesn't come from me. The United States Air Force has been investigating these things, and they had Project Sign, Project Grudge, Project Blue Book. And they're the ones that categorized UFO sightings in Close Encounters of the First Kind. It's when someone sees a UFO. Close Encounter of the Second Kind, they see a UFO and somehow the UFO interacts with the environment. Maybe burn marks on the face or landing prints on the ground or radar or photograph or whatever. It interacts with the environment. And then Close Encounter of the Third Kind, and this is coming right out of the Air Force books, okay? This was Dr. J. Allen Hynek, the scientific advisor to the United States government. And they broke it down. Close Encounter of the Third Kind is when witnesses report entities connected to the craft.
Mm.
And those cases are plentiful globally. And that's coming, and you look at the documents directly, particularly ones that get FOIA'd or that were previously classified that are now out. It's in plain sight, man. It's right there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not me, saying this. I mean, sure, I'm reporting on it as well, but this the Air Force figured that out pretty quickly.
The Zimbabwe incident, the children spoke with beings, correct?
The telepathic, yeah.
Right, but
Looked in the eyes.
they saw beings.
Yes.
And they reported, correct me if I'm wrong, like environmental concerns.
Yes.
That was one of the big things,
Taking
right?
better stewards of the earth.
Right, which is kind of a recurring theme.
Yeah.
It seems like with a lot of these sightings and
Taking,
like third, close
shutting
encounters.
our nukes off.
Yeah. I'm curious, do you find that to be a common theme that comes up?
I find that to be rather soothing, quite honestly.
Yeah, it is nice that these aliens are just
somebody's
hippies.
looking out for
Yeah,
us.
it's like, dude,
It ain't
just
us.
smoke some weed, chill out for a minute. You know what I mean? Just take a step back.
Absolutely.
It seems to be recurring though.
Yeah. It's really funny because I interviewed this launch control officer, and I always remember this. And I was like, no wonder why this guy's a launch control officer. He has this demeanor that it was just like, he's so calm and centered and measured. Everything that comes out of his mouth is like carefully calculated, and he's calm. And I said, my God, they shut the nukes off. And you were, oh my God, what? That's like sending a message. And he goes, yeah, James, the message was pretty clear. Maybe I said, what? And he goes, well, it's like taking matches out of the hands of a baby. Maybe you guys shouldn't be playing around with these things. That one always just really struck a chord with me,
Right.
hearing that from the guy who was there watching his nukes get shut off. And UFO come over the base, shut them off, and then whiz, gone.
Yeah.
And, can't do anything about it. And then, and this is another thing, it's like these school incidents, there's landings at schools, like, holy smokes, like, wow. You start looking into it, there's a lot of them.
Right.
I mean, I covered the 1966 Westall UFO incident. Shane Ryan, thank you if you're listening for helping expose that one. But there were 360 plus kids outside.
Where was this?
What is Australia?
Okay.
Right outside Melbourne, 1966, April 4th, I believe, or 6th, 5th, 6th. 360 plus people, including the science professor, the teachers, and all watching this disc-shaped object dart around in the sky over the school, Westall Primary School, and then it lands. And a handful of the kids, I interviewed them, ran over to where this thing landed and stood there in broad daylight with this disc on the ground, like, what is this thing? Like, right there, like almost walk over and touch it, and then it lifted back up again, turned on its side, and shot off at an extremely high rate. And there's a guy named James Kibble that took a photograph, a Polaroid of it, probably the same object, just a few kilometers away, either day before or 2 days before, or I think it was maybe 2 days prior. That it's also in the phenomenon. So, I don't know. I mean, if I were trying to establish some level of communication, children are pretty benign. I know our military generally shoots first and asks questions later. So, like, if I were, and I'm just speculating, but if I were to make any kind of peaceful contact, I probably would land at a school too.
Right.
Because you get shot up landing anywhere else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You might get a slingshot or something
Like
at a school.
Yeah, you might get a slingshot.
A kickball in the window, but you can live. Was there contact in that case? Like, was there any type of communication?
Well, when I was there, I went on a big radio show in Australia talking about that case, and so one person called in and it's like, oh, there was an entity outside, but that's the only account. No, generally speaking, no, that was not contact. But landing,
interesting,
and a good one too. I mean, can you imagine? And of course, the men in black or the men in suits showed up on that case and threatened the science teacher who just passed, Mr. Greenwood. And I got Greenwood to come forward for the first time in history in the phenomenon. And then subsequently to that, Ross Coulthart did an interview with him. And thank God, because he's no longer with us. But he said, yeah, they came and threatened him big time.
In what way? Do you
just keep your mouth shut? If you want to keep your job, we're going to destroy you. Like, we're going to say you're drunk, you're drinking with just all the above. Just threatened him. And he didn't talk for 50 years.
Wow.
50 years.
And these are American men in black guys?
Sometimes, like, for instance, with Varginha, there were a Brazilian-speaking person with two other foreigners that they assumed were Americans that didn't open their mouths. And so, but it would probably be at the direction of the American. I mean, they certainly, are in control of the situation much more than, an exception with China and Russia, but the Americans pretty much dominate the global. The reason why I know this is because I've interviewed people from Tehran, I've interviewed people in Africa, South, all over the world. I can give countless cases. And I'm like, Americans again?
Yeah.
Like, how did you even hear about it? Like, Tehran, Iran was in 1975 with General Parviz Jafari, told me. I flew him into Washington, D.C. to testify at the National Press Club back in 2007. And he was like, yeah, and then the Americans showed up the next morning. And the sighting happened like 2 a.m. Wow. How did they hear about that so quickly? How did they get there? Like, what were they doing? Americans?
What do you make of that? Like, I mean, granted, Tehran in 75, it's like pre-revolution, so it's probably easier to go.
Well, yeah, but they were also in Belgium in 89. I interviewed the Belgian general, General de Brouwer, Air Force general in Belgium. And he's like, oh, yes. And then, the Americans showed up and they wanted the radar reports, the radar tapes. And he's like, okay, well, give me an official request and I'll give you copies. They wouldn't do that because there's a paper trail.
Interesting.
But it was like, oh, they're investigating that case too. Like they're there.
What would
And then
happen?
Bentwaters, England, 1980. I interviewed the deputy base commander, Colonel Charles Halt. I also interviewed the general on the base, and he's like, yeah, this plane flew in, American plane flew in, sanitized, exposed the witnesses to sodium pentothal.
What is that?
It's some kind of truth serum, and the deputy base commander was like, I don't know what the hell this plane came in. They had control of the situation. They screwed with my men. They did, took whatever evidence they had. The landing print, like. Evidently, they took photographs. Those were gone. Like, oh, they didn't turn out. But so they have a global footprint.
A truth serum. Have you looked into that before?
Well, I was just telling you what was told to me by the guy that was there. He just said that his men were given this truth serum, I guess, trying to find out what they really saw. I don't know.
Have you ever looked into this substance? What you said it was sodium.
Sodium pentothal is what I heard. Yeah.
And have you ever looked into that?
No.
It seems like a wild.
Yeah. What does
thing.
it say?
Well known in pop culture under the name sodium pentothal, truth serum. Efficacy is questioned.
Truth serum.
Wow, I've
Yeah.
never even heard of that.
Yeah. That's what Colonel Charles Halt told me. Yeah.
We should try some of that. Get some of that on the pod. Creases, run to the corner store.
Like, don't believe in UFOs. It's all nonsense, okay?
Get some sodium pentothal here immediately. We're going to be ripping lines, dude. That is fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm curious, have you heard of a case of any type of anomalous craft in a non-friendly country, like a North Korea or like a post-revolution Iran? And what is the American intervention in that situation?
I don't know, to answer your question. I know there are cases in China, and I never heard of any Americans being there.
Interesting.
Yeah, I didn't hear of it. Doesn't mean that's not the case. I didn't hear of it.
Sure.
I don't know if they have a deal with them or not, but landing case, Meng Jiao in the Black Forest, I think. And it happened the same year that the landing case happened in Africa, and the same message.
Interesting.
Yeah, being better stewards of the environment.
Okay, I have a bunch of questions on that.
Yeah.
But first, I want to ask, it's interesting that Spielberg is kind of the one that like low-key tipped you off to the Zimbabwe case.
Yeah.
And this was,
90s.
one explanation is, right, he's like doing this film, E.T., and he's discussing, extraterrestrial stuff. And at this point, there's been, many, extraterrestrial type movies. So
let me say one thing real quickly about
please.
Spielberg that's relevant to what you're telling me right now.
Yeah.
Spielberg did Close Encounters of Third Kind. Guess who's in that movie? Dr. Jalen Hynek, who investigated UFOs in an official capacity for the United States Air Force, has a cameo in that movie.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was Spielberg basically saying, and those files came to, even down Richard Dreyfuss' face being burned, that came right out of Project Blue Book files.
Right.
So Spielberg worked with the guy that knew,
Right.
and he put him in the movie as a little,
Little wink.
Yeah.
There's also reference to like Jacques Vallée, like his characters.
Yeah, of course. It was
in the film, like
absolutely. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
no,
you.
but this is a guy that is well researched in the field, right? Which makes sense if you're making multiple movies about
Spielberg
this.
has Dr. Hynek in his movie. Like that's basically like wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
What do you make of like predictive programming in film and TV? You're familiar with this term? The idea of like putting things out into pop culture so as to either
Gauge the public awareness
to try to
reaction.
placate the public, to try to make things seem crazy in science fiction, or to maybe get people prepared for things. This is things I've heard in like sort of conspiracy world that people have talked about, like, oh, Men in Black is a way to kind of discredit things, that when we're saying Men in Black right now, people go, you mean Will Smith?
Yeah.
Like talking about like a hunched over little alien guy. Like it's so absurd because we've seen it in the
Yeah,
movies.
that's why I don't like using the word Men in Black. I mean, I say it, but it's because it's got baggage.
But I'm curious, like, if you have a perspective on, do these guys do research on films and pull stuff from reality to make great movies? Are they doing the movies intentionally in cooperation with intelligence services to try to inject things into public consciousness? I'm curious if you've thought about that.
Yeah. So back in 2 consecutive weekends in July of 1952, you had, because people always go, well, if UFOs are real, why don't they land on the White House lawn? I'm like, they almost did it in 52. I don't know if you know about that case, but it was so intense and so many people witnessed, and they scrambled military jets. This is over the Capitol, 1952, 2 consecutive weekends in July. You can Google it, UFOs over D.C., 1952. They had a press conference about it. General John Sanford got up in front of the world. It was the biggest press conference since the end of World War II. It was huge. And it was a big deal. Like, I mean, UFOs were buzzing the Capitol big time, right? And they were shaking in their boots, like, oh my gosh, what are we about to make what's going on here? And we can't really deny it because too many people witnessed it. You know, they scrambled military jets. They actually given authorization to shoot. Like, it was a big deal. I cover it in the phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
And the Air Force didn't know what to do. So they convened a panel. It was called the Robertson Panel. This probably January of the following year, 53. And basically consulted with the CIA. It's like, all right, what do we do here? What do we tell the public? How do we deal with this problem, basically? And this panel basically made a number of determinations. But one of the things they said, look, if we can't deny the existence or there's too much compelling data, what we can do is we can adopt, and referring to the United States Air Force, we can adopt a policy of ridicule. So you make fun of those who claim to have seen them.
Mm-hmm.
And that really stuck. I mean, it was a very effective campaign. And I got to tip my hat to them as much as I'm upset about it. Wow, that worked, you know, because what's so funny about an airline, pilot reporting something that just doesn't make any sense. Like, I mean, all right, these things happen, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But to make fun of them, there's no incentive or career enhancing move to come forward. Particularly an airline wouldn't want to be associated to pilots that see UFOs. It's not good branding.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So that was a very effective campaign. And as far as like movies being done that can gauge the public interest or awareness. I mean, I had a lot of people when Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out, they were like people that were witnesses, like they felt validated. Like, oh my God, that's exactly what I saw. Well, that happened to me. It's like, wow. And honestly, I'm not exactly sure what Spielberg's objective was, or was he? I mean, he certainly was working with government insiders in the sense that Dr. Hynek, who investigated in official capacity, participated in that movie and was a consultant.
Mm-hmm.
Jacques Vallée, his character was portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of truth in that movie, lots of truth, and it was tremendously popular. But was the government behind it? I don't know.
It's not out of the realm of possibility.
No, but I remember hearing about. It might have been Men in Black. You could look it up, but they basically said to the director or the producers, like, if you mention Area 51, you're no longer going to have any of our support. Or Roswell with the bodies, Area 51. It was like we're not going to cooperate with you at all.
Interesting.
And they did anyway. Yeah, I heard about it. I think it was Men in Black, but it could have been another one. But anyway, you can research it.
What's up, people? We're going to take a break because we got new merch. That's right. It is the holiday season, and the good folks over at Camp R&D have been cooking up in the lab. We got the Christmas sweaters with the aliens. We got the Christmas sweaters with the conspiracy vibes. You already know. I mean, this one might be my favorite one. A Christmas tree full of aliens. Full Christmas sweater energy. And then, of course, if you just want something simple, you bust out the camp logo tee with the little Christmas lights on it. Come on, bro. Get cute for Christmas, okay? It is a holiday season, all right? We're celebrating the birth of the Savior, okay? And what better way to do it than to cop a couple threads for the person in your life that you know that loves a campsite, that loves hanging with us every single week. And right now, we're running a promo through the holidays. That's right. Use the promo code Christmas Camp for 15% off. I just made that up on the spot, but I think we can do it, right?
I'll call some people.
Christmas Camp for 15% off.
Sure.
16% off.
Whatever you say, Mark.
Should we give them more?
One more.
17% off, people. I think this is going to work. I'm not positive. We're going to see if we can do it. But I'll, check it out, guys. We got all the camp stuff going until the end of the year. Check it out. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. I love you all. God bless and Merry Christmas. Like, I almost wonder things like this, like the memification of like alien culture. Like, you go to Roswell today and there's like UFO cafe and like trinkets and stuff.
Come crash with us.
Yeah, exactly. And it's fun, but
Yeah.
I almost wonder if it's once again like kind of if we're operating under the premise that like these things are actual retrievals that the U.S. government is in possession of, the memification kind of dilutes the discourse. Like it kind of makes it seem like, oh yeah,
Little
it's like
silly.
it's fun, it's
Yeah.
goofy, like
Yeah.
an Area 51, restaurant in Nevada. It's like, oh yeah, it's a goofy thing.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it's intentional, if it's allowed, if it's permitted because it sort of moves people off of trails, or if it's just sort of, a happenstance and people can't really stop it. And if that's just how humans operate, we memify stuff. We kind of make things into jokes.
Or the truth comes out in a joke. It's like, it sort of adds levity to the situation, and excuse me, and I think people are fascinated whether they believe it or they don't believe it, or maybe they're leaning heavily into it, or maybe they're like me, like, well, I don't believe it, but I'm willing to look into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think making light of a situation. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the Phoenix Lights case, but the governor initially set out 5-7, and remember, he'd just seen it himself. He does a press conference. Well, he goes forward to the press and he's like, we're launching an investigation. We're going to address this. We're going to get to the bottom of it. I'm contacting the Luke Air Force Base and the Department of Homeland Security, And then later that day, and I'm convinced at this point that this day he got a phone call, but he denies it emphatically. So, but he has a press conference where he has one of his aides dressed up in a little alien suit and makes light of the whole thing. And people were pissed. Like the witnesses were really upset. In fact, when I was going to interview the governor, which everyone's like, I always say if I have a 0.00001% chance of doing something, I'm going for it, right? And I was like, I'm going to interview the governor. And everyone's like, my partner's like, yeah, good luck with that. He goes, you don't have a snowball's chance in hell. I was like, well, I'm going for it. And he granted me an interview. And so, and everyone's like, well, what's he going to say? I said, who gives a shit? Let's go. And on my way to do that interview with, yep, there it is. On my way to do the interview with Fife, I called one of the witnesses, Stacy Rhodes, who fascinating. Her and her daughter Emily saw this. I mean, they pulled over. I think they pulled over on the side of the road. It was on Interstate 10 between Tucson and Phoenix, and there was that huge boomerang shape. She goes, James, I could have opened up a newspaper above my head, and I couldn't have blocked this thing out. That's how big it was, and it took minutes to fly over. But in any case, I called her up. I said, Stacy, and I'm going to keep in touch with her. I was like, you're not going to believe who I'm going to see. And she's like who? And I go, I'm going to interview 5-7-10, like that. She goes, oh my gosh, you're going to, And I said, is there anything you'd like to say to him? She goes, you're damn right I would, right? Because after you pulled that stunt. So she said, you're damn right I would. And so I said, well, hold on. Let me record a statement, and then I'll play it for him at the right time during the interview. So I wasn't sure what his intentions were, the governor, to tell me. I think what he wanted to do was he got a lot of backlash from that incident, or making light of it, as you and I were talking about earlier, like just making light of it. He had his aide dressed up as an alien, when people were really pissed off, people very, very upset. And I think he felt like, okay, maybe I should address that. I wasn't sure how far he was going to go in the interview, and I didn't quite honestly care, but I wanted to get in the room with him.
Now, just for timeline, the interview that you did with him
10
was
years after.
10 years, okay.
Yep. And so it was the 10th year anniversary was coming up, and so I said, well, I'm not going to ambush him with this recording, because she was like, I was your constituent, and I put you in office, and I saw this thing, and you went up there and made fun of every one of us. How could you do that to us? And da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, she was letting it out 10 years later, like, you. And so I was like, well, I better not do that, right? Let me get as much as I can get out of this guy, and then I'm going to say, oh, by the way, and he got a little uncomfortable in his chair. But I said, 45 minutes into the interview, whatever it was, I said, I got this little message, one of your constituents and a witness to the event. And she just would like to, ask you a question. If I recorded it earlier today. He's like, oh, and he kind of adjusts his seat a little bit, and all right, here we go, like ready to take this hit, and press play. And he sat there, and I could see his brain processing, like, fuck.
You played the whole thing?
I did. Yeah. And he sat there and he was like, processing. I was like, this is going to go either way. I don't know what, this guy might just get up and be like,
I'm out.
Yeah. And he sat there and he listened to her, and it sunk in. And that's when he was like, I feel you. I too saw that thing. And I didn't feel that it was of this earth, of this world, or otherworldly, I think is how he phrased it. And I'm sitting there, and it was one of the first times in my career where I was like, this can't be happening. So I reached down, I swear on my life, I reached down and I pinched my leg. I did. I pinched my leg, see if I could feel was I dreaming? Like, did I just get the governor to come forward and admit that he saw that thing too? So I pinched my leg, and I'm like, I can feel that. I'm not dreaming. I swear to God. So then I look at the camera. I'm like, the camera's probably not rolling. So I look at the camera and I see the red light and the numbers ticking away. I'm like, oh, the camera's moving and I'm not dreaming. Holy shit, I got the governor. The governor. Like, this is going to drop big, right? And it did. But it was like, I think he just had this moment where just like, you know what? I'm just going to whatever the consequences, yeah, let's go. And he did.
Wow.
But he goes, honestly, James, and we had a couple drinks a couple times. We hung out quite a bit. And I figured he would lighten up a little bit. And maybe he would tell me he got a phone call to him to shut it down. But he denies it. I don't know if I believe it. Because he was 1 minute, he was like gung-ho, launch investigation, full transparency. Next minute, it's all a joke, blah, blah, blah. You saw the alien in the, it's like his lead aide is like, the truth comes out in a joke, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's like, it was aliens kind of thing.
Which is so funny that this girl probably went to some Ivy League school.
So anyway,
I'm assuming.
So this story, I think Leslie Kane might have written an article, about it, but it exploded. It exploded. And they were contacting everyone. All the media was contacting Governor Symington. And to his credit, he goes, no, James is coming with me. James is the reason why I'm coming forward. And he's coming no matter what press I'm doing, he's mandatory. He's coming with me. And I really admired him for that. He was like, this guy deserves the credit. He approached me. He got me to come forward. And so, I get a phone call. I'm going on a tangent here, but it's kind of funny.
Please.
Yeah. I get a phone call from, at the time, the Joe Rogan was Larry King.
Yeah.
Right? Larry King was Joe Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, and I get a phone call and it was from Avriel Gallagher. Excuse me. And she's like, oh, this is Avriel Gallagher from Larry King, CNN. We'd like to invite you on the show. And I was like, yeah, and pigs fly. Or said some asinine response, and she goes, "Excuse me?" And then I said to myself, "Oh shit, this really is CNN calling."
Keep pinching yourself. Pinch yourself again.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh my gosh," So anyway, but we ended up doing a bunch of public, and it was a big story. But yeah, he made fun of it, and he says he did it because people were panicking, and he needed to add some levity.
Yeah, I can understand his position. On the one hand, it's like, all right, well, let's just kind of brush it off.
He was
No one will
governor.
remember.
That could have been a turning point.
Yeah.
In 97.
And then not to mention, I don't know when he's running for re-election, but this comes up and they're like, oh yeah, do you want to vote for the guy that saw aliens?
That sees UFOs.
To this discrediting point, it's like, okay, I have to push this down. Yeah. And then 10 years later to be confronted with the sort of shame and humiliation that his constituents felt that he didn't back them up, I can understand the sort of wave of emotion where he's like, yeah, I did sell all these people out. They saw something, and I said that I would investigate it, and then I completely turned my backs on them, and now it's time to rectify that. I can imagine that's a difficult position to be in.
It's always best to tell the truth, despite the consequences. Mm-hmm. They won't come back and bite you in the ass, and people will respect you for it.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that now. People are coming forward. Mm-hmm. Right now with the crash case in Varginha, we've got this neurosurgeon who's coming forward for the first time in 30 years.
But just on that incident, the Phoenix Lights, did you speak? You spoke with Larry about it, with Larry King.
Oh yeah.
What was his demeanor? Was he? I
He
I
was
imagine
really
he's the
funny,
supreme skeptic.
Oh, so I did 9 shows with Larry King, and a couple of them. Thank you, executive producer Wendy Walker, who pretty much gave me the budget and said, "What do you want to do? I'm on a satellite feed here. I want to fly this guy in here. I want this FAA official being in here." And I was organizing all the shows, and I had a budget. I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" I was kicking ass, you know what I mean? And we did 9 shows, but maybe the second or third show in, pretty compelling information coming in. Had the governor with me. Went to commercial break, and Larry goes, "Shit, this stuff's real, isn't it?" Swear to God.
Off air.
Yeah, off air. He goes, "Shit, this stuff's real." He was just coming to the realization. I had a colonel next to me. I had the governor. I had FAA officials. I had they were real serious people saying yeah, this is fucking real. Yes, it landed at our base like this or that. And he was like, he had this look on his face. To me, the way I felt it was like, I am mainstream media and we missed this story. We missed this story. And then, kept having more and more shows and more. And what was funny, actually, in retrospect, because Leslie Keene and I, who's contributing editor to the New York Times, got a piece out right now. We had an event at the National Press Club around that time, 2007, and I broke the story in 2006 with Fife Symington because it was happening in 97. It was roughly coming up on the 10-year anniversary, and we were just saying, hey, we need to reopen Project Blue Book. Essentially, is what was happening. We were pushing for that publicly. Like, all we're asking is that we need we need to reopen the government investigation. Little did we know that OSAP and ATIP and Senator the Harry Reid, the former Senate Majority Leader, did exactly that, but he did it in private.
Right.
And that was happening exactly. And Leslie and I go, oh my God, that was happening right at the time we were pushing for it. And it was happening, but it was happening behind the scenes.
Right.
And that the only reason why we know about what we know today, because people go, oh, there's like this sudden big epiphany, with the intel folks and the government, they want the public. No, that's not what happened at all. What happened was a couple of people protested in excessive secrecy. They took those tapes, found a loophole, and they walked them out of the Pentagon like a pimp in a briefcase right to the front page of the New York Times.
Wow. And that was the 2017
Thank you,
story?
Christopher Mellon and Lou Elizondo. That was that exploded it into the headlines.
Right.
And they walked those tapes at great risk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, granted, they did find a loophole, but they did not want those tapes out. Why,
So this idea that there's some type of concerted media effort to disclose this thing on behalf of the government.
It was a handful of people that said, we don't care the consequences. The public has a right to know, and screw you guys. Because there are people on the inside that want this out. They go, a big psyop or whatever. The psyop is coming from the people that don't want it out. That's what the psyop is. There are good people within the government that do want this out. There are people that have a heart, have a brain, and have a heart, and have compassion and sympathy, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, all right, sure. There's certain aspects of the phenomenon that probably should remain classified. The technology.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want somebody to get in the wrong hands and put a bomb on it. I mean, I get that, but the fact that we're not alone, and I think that's, I don't know, my opinion and the opinion of many others, that we have a right to know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a global right. Every man, woman, and child has a right to know that we are not alone.
I'm curious just in relation to you speaking with so many people that have experienced this phenomenon in so many different capacities, whether it's like an eyewitness, drinking tea outside, or if it's a government official, a general that is completely sort of anonymous because of how close they are to the actual events.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly you've spoken with people that have dubious reporting or dubious accounts. I'm curious, like, what is the criteria that you go through when interviewing these people to assess, is this legitimate and credible, or is this someone that's suffering from a delusion with a mental health issue? Like, how do you navigate that?
Well, I always like to see all people's medical records, military records, photographs in the military, all their military records. I want to do a deep dive in their reporting, right? So that's very important to me. Does their story conflict with other people that were on the base that night, or you know what I mean? Or does it seem to be like, for instance, there was a really good case, Bentwaters, England, 1980, December, a landing, and there were the general, the base commander, a bunch of other witnesses that, two of which sat with the craft on the ground, Burroughs and Peniston, another guy named, come to me in a second. Anyway, all their stories jibed, right? Except one. There was one guy, Larry Warren, no offense to you. I believe that you believe what you're saying, but it was so far left field. It conflicted big time with everybody else's story. So, and I'm thinking to myself, like, it would make sense that if I was trying to cover something up that happened, that I would get one guy, feed him a bunch of wacky, crazy stuff, have him spewing off about it, maybe he really believes that, or maybe somehow his memory was influenced. I don't know. And that would sort of muddy the waters. It's a very effective campaign, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, oh, well, I heard that was a lighthouse, or that was this, or didn't they have aliens getting, no, that's not what they're saying. But one guy is. So I opted to leave him out because that just didn't add up to me at all.
Was his explanation completely like sort of material,
Yeah,
like, oh, it
He
never
took it
happened?
like, no, like, oh, the aliens got out, we made contact, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And everyone's like, no, it didn't. Like, everybody across the board. Yeah, it landed. We saw it land. We saw it take off. But there was no contact made.
So it was even more
It was
outrageous.
just so outlandishly, like, crazy that it would make you just go, you know what? I don't want anything to do with this case,
Interesting.
Did it happen intentionally? I don't know. It's pretty effective. But I looked at that. I listened to him. I listened to it. And I decided, you know what? I'm not going to. So people's military records, is their testimony consistent with all the others? And again, I usually, generally speaking, I do, mass sightings, more,
Right.
I'll cover a single one every now and again, but for the most part, it's bigger.
What do you make of like individual abductions?
So I don't delve down that rabbit hole. However, I was friends with a gentleman named Bud Hopkins, and in 2007, he was super duper excited. And I have tremendous respect for people that investigate these so-called abduction cases, whatever's going on. If it's true, that'd be a reason for secrecy, because no guy's like, oh, these little critters are coming and taking people in the middle of the night. Like, oh my God. But he did this experiment where he was interviewing and doing some sort of meditation, or when you call that, when you take people,
like a regression?
yeah,
Past life
exactly.
regression people will
Or,
talk about,
yeah,
or some type of
somehow
like
going to some deep
a,
meditative state. and
a
they get
memory
into-
regression.
Yeah, something like that.
Memory recovery, sometimes people
Something
call
like that. But he was doing that with patients, alleged abductees, and I'm not poo-pooing any of the. I'm just going to give you my what impressed me, and he was very excited, Bud Hopkins, and he was showing me these drawings that various witnesses or alleged abductees had made, and what he said was, "What do you see on the craft? You're on the table. What do you see? Is there anything on the walls? Do you see, And they all drew this symbol that was on the wall of the craft. And every single one of them, from different countries, all drew the same symbol. Slightly different variation. But he goes, look at this. I went, that's pretty compelling. That's pretty compelling. Is this a dream? If it is, that's pretty interesting. That, to me, for me personally, I was like, wow, that's pretty compelling stuff there, bud.
Has that symbol been publicly disclosed?
I don't know.
And
Maybe.
you saw it though.
I did. Oh, I saw all the drawings.
Interesting.
Yeah, he was all excited and he showed it to me.
And you felt that there was legitimate comparison.
I was like, wow, that's impressive. To me, I mean, wouldn't it be impressive?
Yeah, of course. But it wasn't like some type of generic. It wasn't like a circle or
No,
something like that.
hell
It was,
no. It was a symbol, like I
something
can't tell you
detailed.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, and they were all trying to draw it, and they were all drawing a very different variation of clearly the same symbol that was on the wall, allegedly, of the spacecraft, allegedly. But it was compelling.
Interesting.
To me, it was like, wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, speaking with people that have been abducted and their abduction stories, I am
Travis Walton.
Yeah.
Best case.
Yeah. And there's many of them, but I'm always moved by the intensity and the fervor that they're describing the experience with, that it leads me, because either they're suffering some type of delusion, they're lying, or aliens or some type of abduction actually occurred, right? It's like kind of falls into these sort of silos for me. And I don't think that they're lying. So I'm now in these two camps where I'm like, somehow this guy had an experience that he can't explain that is legitimately traumatizing. They're talking about being probed and being analyzed, and it's like very like emasculating of an experience. And I don't know what to make of it. I come away from it every time being like, I believe that this happened to him either here or here, but I don't know where.
I got to tell you, this is really funny because see if you guys can look this up. It's Allagash 5 or Allagash 4. It's a abductee abductees in the 70s, and it was like I don't know. See if we can find it. Oh, I'm at a dinner table. This is like 20 plus years ago with a couple of these witnesses, and they were out a very remote area of wilderness. And they said they were on a fishing boat. They had a fire on the beach. They were at campsite. They were on this little boat, and they're out there fishing at night under the stars. And they said they saw this light, like way off over the forest, like way off in the distance. And one of them, I think they were like school teachers, and one of them was like, "Oh, I got my flashlight, and I was just kind of curious. I figured I'd try to send a message to, whatever this thing was. Oh, curious." So he flicks his light on this thing off in the distance, and he said, not a moment later, that object that was way off in the distance shot across the sky right over our boat. 4 guys? Yeah, 1976. So the guy goes, at which point my curiosity was fully satisfied. Like that is what he said to me.
Well, it worked.
It was fully
Yeah,
satisfied.
let's get to the beach for a second.
So they're like racing, trying to get back to the campsite in their canoe. And then the next thing, then this thing just got them. They just like got them all. And then they
Oh, I would be
missing
pissed.
time,
Oh.
missing time.
Mm-hmm.
And they're back at their campsite. It's like the fire's almost out, and they're just like looking at each other. Well, I guess they didn't talk about it at all. No recollection, really. Just lost time. Like, and they're sitting there, and and they claw on their tents. They go to sleep. The next morning, they pack up, they leave, and then they all start having these nightmares. Yeah, of being on a table and being like, just like you would if you caught like a rabbit out in the wild and you wanted to kind of not kill it, but take blood, whatever,
Yeah.
just like examine it or whatever. But yeah, that's really compelling. What makes it compelling is, you got multiple people. Something happened to those guys.
Mhm.
Something happened,
Mm-hmm.
Travis Walton, 7 witnesses?
Right.
75 maybe? Snowflake, Arizona. These guys, like that. What I find so credible about that case is there's a movie made about it called Fire in the Sky, and it was very accurate up until the point where he went aboard the craft. At that point, it was a dramatization. But I think Paramount insisted they did it that way, which was silly. But these guys see this UFO, like they had this. It was 75. That case, they had like those trucks that have 4 doors, and so there was like 3 people in the front and 4 in the back, and they were loggers, and they had a contract with the government. And they're trying to like meet the deadlines, or they're working late, and it's like the sun's gone down, and they're like driving on these dirt roads, very remote, and they see what they thought maybe was a fire or something, this really bright light off in the distance, and they came up on it. And it was a perfect disc, just hovering maybe treetop level or maybe a little bit lower, but it was right there. I mean, they were like, oh my God. Travis Walton, one of the witnesses, before the truck even stopped, he's jumping out to get a closer look because he's thinking to himself, oh my God, like I got to get a closer look at this thing because before it shoots off. Well, it didn't shoot off. It stayed there. And all the guys in the truck were screaming at him to stop. It's like, get back here. What are you doing? Get back. And he runs up to it, and then it starts making this like sound, like a humming or some kind of like something was winding up, like something was happening. And he's freaking out. So he hides behind this log. He kind of crouches down behind this log. The guys in the truck are screaming at him to get back. And he's thinking, you know what, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. And he's pretty damn close to it. I better get back to the truck. And he gets up behind this log, and something hits him. And he goes like a Raggedy Ann doll. He's thrown. And the driver hits the foot on the gas pedal thinking they're next. And they blaze out of there. And they're going, and they're screaming at each other like, we can't leave Travis. Like, we can't leave him there for dead. We can't do that. And I guess the driver I guess Travis was dating his sister or something. And the driver's like, I'm not leaving him. We're turning around. And a couple of the guys in the truck were like, well, I'm not, you don't want to go? I'll let you out right here. You guys wait here. And they were like, no, let's stick together. So they stick together. They turn around. They go back. Disc gone. Travis gone. So what do? They look to the best of their ability. Travis, they scour the area, and they were pretty freaked out, as you can imagine. So they go down in town, and they tell the local authorities, what happened. And they're like, basically, you guys are all under arrest for homicide. Yeah. And they're like, they all ended up taking lie detectors. you can imagine, like, oh yeah, flying saucers zapped our buddy, yeah, and pigs fly, right? Yeah, but they all maintain to this day. I mean, it's like, and then he reappears a week later. It's an incredible case.
Yeah.
Incredible case.
And what do you make of it? Have you
I
spoken
think it
with,
happened.
Have you spoken
Oh,
with
hell
Travis?
yes. Yes. In fact, I went to the exact location where it happened, and there was some examination of accelerated growth of the trees right around at the epicenter of where the UFO was. So somehow the propulsion caused the tree rings to accelerated growth. That some sort of energy field, I don't know. But we went and cut the trees and looked at the rings and had some people examine that, and so that was interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I interviewed another couple of the witnesses that were in the truck. And it was really funny because one of them was working at Walmart, and he was really busy. And he's like, "Look, man, I'm really busy. I guess I could meet you on my cigarette break at Walmart. And if you want to come," I was like, "Yeah, I'll take what I can get." Sure, I want to hear from all you guys, as many as I could. So I said, "Well, what did the UFO look like?" And he goes, "God, have you ever seen like a brand new Corvette, like brand new on the showroom floor? Beautiful, so beautiful like this." I was like, "A brand new Corvette?" Like, he goes, "Yeah, man, you know how perfect those Corvettes are, so perfect." He goes, "This was more perfect. It was just, and drew a little, you know what I mean? But isn't that funny?
Wow.
Like, all those years later, I could see in his eyes,
Just
he was
enamored.
dude, he was looking at it. He wasn't looking at me, man. He was looking at that Corvette. He was looking at that object in the sky.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, dudes are the best. Even
Yeah,
when in the face
you
of
know
an
what I mean?
alien
Yeah.
abduction, you're like, dude, I want one
Yeah.
of those.
He was like, "You ever see a brand new Corvette? Brand new." Like,
He's been in that truck too long. He's like, dude,
So
I gotta get
funny.
a new
so
car.
funny, man. If I had the money, I'd buy him a brand new Corvette. Wherever you are out there, you deserve it.
That's wild.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
What's up, people? We're going to take a break really quick because I have amazing news. I'm coming on the road. That's right. My very first headlining tour where I'm going to every city that will possibly allow me to go there. I'm going to Fort Wayne, Indiana, Chicago, Hoboken, New Jersey. I'm going to Salt Lake City. I'm going to Washington, D.C., and Charlotte, North Carolina in February. Those tickets will be announced soon. And, of course, I'm doing my monthly show at Mary Lou in New York City on December 16th. The best comics in the city will be coming out, and I'll be working out some new material. It is a grand old time. You can get all the tickets at Mark Gagnon Live, and I'll see you guys there. Let's get back to the show.
When talking with Travis, did you feel that there was a discomfort in the way he described the event? Was he...
So I have a technique that I use that every now and again when I really want to hear a story, because I'm fascinated, I'm curious. I'm just curious by nature. And if I want to really, if let's say you had an encounter and I just wanted to, hey man, I really want to get this out. I want to know every single.
And you don't have true serum nearby.
I
There's
don't
no
have true
sodium,
serum. Exactly.
whatever.
I don't have the sodium pentothal.
Yeah.
What I do is I close my eyes and I let their words, which seems kind of weird, right? But I tell them ahead of time, like, I'm going to close my eyes because I want your words to create the imagery needed to really put me in your shoes. I want to see what you saw. I want every detail imaginable. So I did that with Travis. We went to dinner together years ago. And I've met him subsequently a number of times. I said, "Travis, I'm so sorry. I know you've been through this so many times. I really hate to ask you this, but can you put me on board that craft, like what you saw, please?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, "I want every detail imaginable, and I'm going to close my eyes. I want to hear it." Yeah. So I close my eyes. And then he starts telling me, and then I say, "Well, hang on. Did you see this? How wide was the door? How the ceiling's low? Where did the light source come from? What did the walls feel like?" And I get every detail. So then I'm living it. Yeah, and I actually did that with an Apollo astronaut, the sixth man to walk on the moon, Edgar Mitchell, because we were talking UFOs, but then I said, "Can you put me on the moon? Can you tell me?" You know what I mean? And so I closed my eyes with him, and and he told me every detail of what it was like to go to the moon.
Wow.
So then I had a dream of going to the moon, and I really went because I knew every detail.
Wow.
It was incredible. But that's what I do. So I closed my eyes. And so that's what I did with Travis. So I could tell you everything he saw. Yeah. I mean, we don't need to get into it here, but
Sure.
yeah.
That is fascinating.
Isn't that cool?
I mean, you must have pretty good mental imagery.
Well, I have a lot of deficiencies. I do. I really do. I have a lot of deficiencies. I had all kinds of disabilities growing up. But that I've got a couple real strengths, and storytelling and listening is when I'm curious, when I want to know, when I'm interested in a
Sure.
topic, I'll get every detail and I'll never forget it.
Now, I'm curious, and forgive me if this has been sort of explained ad nauseum, but have you experienced anything sort of unexplainable in this regard? Have you yourself experienced a craft? Have you yourself had dreams that were vivid, that were unexplainable? Anything in that regard that you feel like is substantial?
I can answer that. It's going to be a few minutes answer if you want me to. I will.
Please.
Yeah. So when I was 20, years and years ago, I was with a girlfriend, Lisa Reinhardt, and it was about 9 o'clock at night. We were in Northern California, and there was a big window, almost the size of that wall, a big window, like maybe 3 by 4 or something, glass, one sheet to the right of our bed. We're hanging out, and all of a sudden, to our right, out the window, we see this like egg-shaped, yellowy, orange light. If I had to guess, I would say half the size of a tiny little Volkswagen Beetle, maybe a little smaller. And we're looking at it, and it's kind of almost like breathing. I don't know. It was like the intensity of the light was changing, fluctuating a little bit. It was just kind of doing this, And she goes, I can swear, right?
Please, you're required.
Thank you. She goes, "What the fuck is that?" And I'm looking at it, and I said, "I don't know what that is, but whatever it is, I get the feeling it knows we're looking at it." She goes, "Yeah, I feel the same thing. Close the blinds." So in my haste, I leapt up out of bed in my underwear, grabbed the blinds to pull them down, and I rip them off the wall, and they hit the floor. Now I'm fumbling around trying to put the damn blinds back up while this thing is sitting there just pulsating right in my face, like right there. And we were both scared. Like, what is that thing, And so I get the blinds back up, and we clutch each other in bed, and we're just like freaking out. What is that? And I don't know, maybe a couple minutes went by, and she goes, "Let's check to see if it's still there." So I pull the blinds back a little bit. It's gone. My older sister, Janine, comes home. She'd been at a concert or something. And she's like, "Hey, guys, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing up?" Like this. We're like, "We just saw this UFO." She goes, "Oh, cool." Like this. And then we told her a little bit, and that was that. Woke up the next morning. You'd think I would tell my dad, everybody who lived at the house. It didn't happen. Didn't say a word. It was
Why?
like it did. I don't know. Didn't think about it. So almost 20 years later, I'm visiting a really good friend of mine. This guy, John Kimmel, lives down in Southern Cal. One of my best friends. And he's like, "When you get here, we're going to run the beach. And then we're going to swim out to the, there's a buoy, like a mile. I don't know what a mile, what quarter mile, whatever, way offshore. We're going to swim out to that buoy, and then we're going to come back in, and we're going to run back." And I'm like, "Oh, man, shit." He goes, "And you're going to do it with me." And I was like, I stay fairly fit. I hike and whatever, but he's like another level, right? So we jog the beach. We swim out to the buoy, get back in, and I was like, "Hey, John." I was like, "I don't know. I want to go to the right." And he goes, "James, there's nothing to the right. I'm telling you, I live here. It's open, barren beach. There's nothing. There's no food down there or cars parked over this way." I said, I want to go to the right. And we argued about it. And I said, "Well, you want to go do your thing? I'm going right." So I go right. And he's like, "All right, let me just show you, you idiot, how there's nothing down here." So there's like big, expansive, empty beach. And we see way off in the distance, just a little dot of a couple people on the beach. But that's it. Other than that, it's completely empty. Get closer and closer and closer to this little dot, and it's a little family. It's a wife and a husband and a girl about 6, 7 years old, hanging out. I'm looking, and I'm like, "Lisa?" It was Lisa Reinhardt who had the UFO sighting with me. Yeah, and she goes, "James?" And I'm like, "Lisa?" And oh my God, what are you doing here? We're both visiting. We don't live there. Yeah, swear to God. So I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, this is my husband, this is my daughter. Oh my God, I can't believe it. She pulls me aside and she goes, you remember that UFO sighting we had? I said, you damn right I do. I said, what do you remember? And then she told me, because I didn't want to tell her. I wanted to remember. She remembered it exactly as I did. So she tells me, and I was like, oh my God. She goes, do you think that has anything to do with what you're doing now? I said, I don't know, Lisa. I don't know. I didn't tell anybody about it. I don't talk about it. It's like it didn't happen. In fact, if you weren't with me, I would never talk about it, But I was like, and it wasn't like, people, I interview people that watch a disc come down and land on a parking lot. I was
Sure.
like, wow, that's pretty. Ours was more ambiguous.
Mhm.
But it was something that the part that was fascinating to me was that it knew we were looking at it. We both felt it. I could call it right now. It's like, that's the one part. And I don't know. And she said to me, like, do you think that has anything? I was like, I don't know. I have no idea. But it was like, she never told her husband. I didn't tell any, yeah. So isn't that weird?
In the sense that it's looking at you. Describe that.
It wasn't like it was well, let's see.
Like
No.
the feeling of being watched?
Yeah, no. It feel like it knew that we were looking at it. So
Mm.
I guess that was looking at us, I
Mhm.
guess. I don't know if it was like looking at us, but it knew we were looking at it.
And other than
I don't know how to
fear,
explain it.
was there a feeling that you had? Was there that
Yeah, it was
euphoria
fear
that we
because
talked about?
no.
It was purely
No, it was
fear.
all scared. It wasn't scared because it was making like any kind of like, excuse me, like threatening behavior or, it was just the unknown.
Right.
Excuse me. Like, what is that? What is that?
And at this point, had you been researching
No,
this
hell
topic?
no,
Had
not-
you read a book? Had you?
No. In fact, we used to have this guy who was friends of the family. His family owned Yardley Soap, and he was a pilot. And he was a really good friend. He's from England. My dad's British, and I was born in England. Family's English, and he'd come over for like Thanksgiving dinners and stuff like that. And he used to tell this story about a UFO encounter they had in an airplane. And I just had no interest. It was just like, oh, cool, not even cool. Like, it didn't, and it was a pretty good one too. I actually called him later, and I was like, Michael, you remember that? He goes, well, you never really interested. I go, well, I am now. Like, I want to hear it.
Times have changed.
Yeah,
I'm a
times
man.
have changed. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know.
It's so interesting. Even the fact that you didn't have a ton of experience before, because so often I'll talk to people that have had like really close experiences
Yeah.
where like they were abducted or they felt something, etc. And I don't use this to discredit, but it's always predicated by some type of loose curiosity in the topic that kind of precedes the event. So they'll be like, I didn't know anything about it. Then I watched a movie, then I read a book, and then bam, it happened. And I had this crazy experience that's unexplainable. And to me, it always sows a little bit of doubt where I go like, well, you were kind of into it
Right.
and it drew you in. And granted, I haven't talked to like the high-ranking military personnel you've spoken with,
Hmm.
but that kind of a thing always makes me question like, well, you're into it. Maybe you had like a stroke or something. You fell asleep. Who
Yeah,
knows
yeah.
exactly what happened. But the fact that you didn't have really any prior curiosity to the event.
More
And-
than less than that. I had no. I didn't even want to hear. I didn't. It was like you're crazy kind of thing. Like in the back of my mind, I was so dismissive of it. Like, like I wasn't even curious.
How long after that event did you start to get curious?
6 years, 5 or 6 years.
And then what predicated that flip?
So I had a really good friend, Renee, and we went to high school together. And I was apprenticing at a video production company in Northern California, and I was like really fascinated with the advent of the video and like instant playback and like editing, and I just thought it was a really cool medium, And so I was like working for free, but learning. I was an apprentice at this company, and my buddy, we were good friends in high school, and then we, as one does, I went off, did some stuff. He went off, did some stuff, and we reconnected like 4 or 5 years after high school. And he's like, James, you hear about Roswell, the alien spaceship, and like this, and I was like, oh my God, my buddy lost his mind. Like, what the fuck? I just lost one of my best friends. Like, shit.
Yeah, It's sad when
Yeah,
it
it was
happens.
really sad. I was like, I really was. I was like, I'm gonna have to write this guy. I'm gonna have to cut this guy loose.
Yeah.
So I'm in the production house, and I was probably 24, 25, and Richard Van Sickle and a tremendous respect for him. And he was really an amazing producer, director, editor. And I was like, hey, Richard, I was like, God, my really good friend is just like lost his mind. He's starting talking about alien Roswell, something crashed and the aliens and this and UFOs. And Richard goes, dude, you don't know about that? I go, no, about what? He goes, the Roswell. I said, no, no, I don't know. I mean, I've heard about it, but like, no. He goes, oh yeah, dude. The military they announced it. They actually said we recovered it. I said, they did? He goes, yeah, man, look at the headline. Like, He goes, oh yeah, you didn't know about that stuff. Like, he goes, oh, that's legit, dude. Yeah. And I was like, Richard, really, dude? You? Like, And he goes, yeah, man. Like, so I started looking into it a little bit. I was like, huh, they did it. They got that. They recanted, but a lot of people that recanted later went on the record and said, no, the original story was true. I was like, that's interesting. So then I started looking into it a little more. I attended a couple conferences. I met some military guys. I was like, maybe there's something going on here.
Interesting.
And my dad, who was a quadriplegic with MS, who was a mainstream journalist and always super supportive. He was the guy that was always like, no matter what you want to do in life, son, I respect. You want to be a garbage man? You want to be a lawyer, a doctor, whatever? I'm 100% behind you. Nothing but support and love. He was like, you're out of your fucking mind and you are going to, he said, dead end street. He goes, you are going nowhere with this.
Really?
There's nothing to it. Don't waste your life, son, please, to me. And I was like, oh, Mr. Supportive guy, like always supporting me no matter what.
Like, yeah, I was lying. I thought you were going to be a doctor.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I didn't think this was going to happen.
I was shocked. I was like, Dad, hello, it's your son here. Like, I'm just curious. And he was begging me. Not only was he begging me not to do it, but he had all of our family members in Europe writing me letters going, your dad's very concerned about what's going on right now. And I just want to check in with you. Like, don't do this. Like, and I just thought, fuck you guys. Like, I'm just curious. I want to. And so I was like, oh yeah, well, watch this, And I think that got me enough where it motivated me to the point where I worked so hard. Because making a documentary is really hard. I was like, Jesus, nobody told me how hard this is.
Yeah.
Making my first one, like years into it, and I sold that baby to Discovery Channel, and everyone was like, damn. Like,
Did your dad come around?
well, so he didn't on the first one, but then I'd made a bunch of like requests for interviews on my first one that acceptance didn't come through until after the first one was done. That's what kind of like rolled me over into the next film out of the blue. But there was an astronaut, a Mercury astronaut, Gordon Cooper, who was an iconic figure of my dad's generation. Like, he was the last American astronaut to go up in space alone. He orbited the planet like 22 times. Everybody knew Gordon Cooper. He's in the right stuff. Like, he was the man. And I made a request for him. I think it took him a year, 2 years, whatever, to finally, agree to meet with me. And I said, Dad, I'm going to got this interview with Gordon Cooper. And normally I'd be going with him because he was in a wheelchair and I was his nurse. I was his secretary. I was his chauffeur. I mean, we traveled together. He relied on me and we had a great time. Like, we went around, interviewed race car drivers and Stephen Hawking a couple times and got to do some really cool stuff.
Wow.
And, but this time I took him with me, which is different. Like, this is my mission, right? And he met Gordon Cooper, and Gordon Cooper had talked about a landing incident that happened at Edwards Air Force Base circa 1957, and they filmed it. And then he saw the film footage of a landed disc at 1957 Edwards Air Force Base. He also had encounters a couple years earlier over some American base in Germany when he was piloting a fighter jet. And he said, yeah, man, we all saw these objects and they were discs shaped and they were doing these crazy maneuvers. And I saw them with my own eyes.
This is
And
Gordon Cooper.
Gordon
himself.
Cooper, yes.
Wow.
And my dad was going,
Uh-oh.
He was like, I could see him, like, he was like,
That Larry King moment.
Yeah,
just
he was like, shit.
Oh, no.
And then he's like, why would this guy make this story up? He's got everything to lose. Like, doesn't make any sense. We're not paying him any money. Like, and I think that got my dad to really start to think, maybe my son isn't so crazy.
How was that car ride home? Did he say anything to you like, hey,
Well, let's put it this way. He was my biggest fan before he died.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Isn't that cool?
Shout out to Gordon Cooper.
Yeah. I know.
Backed you up.
I know.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I'm always curious, like, you've spoken to so many people.
Yeah. Probably too many.
Yeah, at this point. Yeah. This interview specifically is the one too far. If there's anyone that you could speak with that you haven't spoken with, and you had 5 minutes of pure honesty, they couldn't lie.
Yeah.
Who are some people you
Lonnie
would talk to?
Zamora.
Who's that?
He's a police officer who had probably one of the most well-documented close encounters of the third kind in U.S. history. It was a close encounter of the third kind. It was the case that got Dr. Hynek, who was working for the Air Force at the time, April 24th, 1964, Socorro, New Mexico. He had eye contact with one of the aliens standing on the outside of the craft. And I've always wanted to know what kind of communication he had with it, because his wife said, I don't know what happened, but ever since he had that encounter, he was never the same. And I read all the I did a deep dive into that case, and I was like, there's metal fragments from the landing gear. There was face-to-face communication with one of the aliens. The Air Force stepped in, and they were like, it had already leaked out at that point, so they couldn't put the lid on it. But they put significant pressure on him to not talk about the beings on the ground, because it's one thing like you have a tic-tac shaped object that's unexplainable, right?
Yeah,
but when
it's
you've
our
got
aircraft, whatever.
But when you got beings on the ground, and you could say like, oh, well, that was an experimental, whatever. Not when there's an alien standing next to it.
Yeah.
So the Air Force did everything they could to get him to not talk. I know that because I talked to his coworkers, I talked to his wife, I talked to his daughter, I talked to his son. Like, I investigated that case. I went to the National Archives. I went and sat for a week at the house of the lead investigator on that case, Ray Stanford. I researched the bejesus out of that case. Yeah.
And what happened to this guy?
Which guy? He died.
Lonnie.
He died in 2008. I didn't get to him in time.
And he never spoke about
He
it?
did. He did a little bit. Yeah. And there was stuff at the time about it. Yep. One of the things that I've learned is that just because the President of the United States is the President of the United States, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're read into the program. And the justification for that is, like, we have an elected official that come and go 4 years, at most 8. And then they're back out and, into the world. And, we're not going to debrief them on 80 years of secrecy on a particular topic. There's lots of things that
they need to know what they need to know.
They need to know what they need to know. And how are you going to ask about something you don't know exists? It's like, so, but generally speaking, that the president has been kept out of the loop on this. Now, there are presidents, and the reason why I know that is because I interviewed them. Jimmy Carter, we kind of ambushed him a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
In what way?
It's a funny story. If you want, I'll tell you. But,
Yeah.
Well, so he just kept, I don't take no for an answer. So I'll just keep going until it happens, right? And so he was no. George, President Ford was a no. That's another story. I'll tell that in a minute. We got to both of them. And it's really funny. So I said, well, damn it, if he's not gonna give me an interview, I'm gonna find out other ways. So I looked at his schedule and I found out he's going on book tour, and he's gonna be at the Stacy's bookstore in San Francisco on book tour, and I'll just go there and I'll bring my camera and I'll just get a statement from him. Screw it, right? Go get his book signed. So my dad calls me. My dad was a quadriplegic, he had MS, and he calls me. He goes, hey, his voice is weak. Hey, I really need help this weekend. I don't have anybody looking after me. I need you to. I said, Dad, I'd love to do that, but I got to go. I'm going to go ambush, President Carter at this book signing, because I'm trying to find out, because he's seen a UFO, and evidently he made inquiries, blah, 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 blah. And my dad's like, well, maybe you can take me with you. I was like, oh, Dad, take you with me? Are you kidding me? It's going to be really tough. And he goes, well, I really need you, son, like that. So I was like, all right. So I contacted my buddy, Tim, who was the guy that told me about Varginha years ago. I said, hey, my dad really needs, he's like, but mate, we're on a mission here. I was like, look, man, my dad, got to take my dad. So we arrive, and there are very little perks for being paralyzed. But lines, airports, parking. There are
Disney
a couple
World?
little Disney
Yeah,
World,
yeah,
a
yeah.
couple little perks, not many, but a couple. So we get there. They bump us ahead of the line. There were people like lined up. I couldn't believe it. In the bookstore, it was on the second floor, all the way down this huge area, and then down the stairs, and then down outside, and then down out the sidewalk, waiting for people to get a glimpse of Jimmy Carter. And they said you can take a picture of him, but you can't take a picture with him. We were going to have a press conference because I was going to get up in the press conference, but that's not going to happen anymore. Like, da-da-da. I was like, shit. Like, God, they're making this impossible. How am I supposed to do this? So we're all just like sitting there waiting, and President Carter, there he is. He walks in to the room, and my dad was sitting in his wheelchair, and Carter was walking to this little table where he was going to be signing books, and people are all waiting. Jimmy Carter walks straight up to my dad, like a magnet, just right up to him. He puts his hand on my dad's knee, and he just acknowledged him because my dad is a quad, like compassion, right?
Wow.
That's who he was. And I thought to myself, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to wire my dad with a secret microphone, and I'm going to have my buddy Tim push him up to the counter. We're going to buy as many books as we can afford. So we stacked like all these books on my dad's lap, right? Kind of cruel, but
means
I'm
to an
on a
end.
mission, right?
Means to
All
an
right,
end.
I'm on a mission, okay?
And your dad's a fan at this
And
point,
my
so
dad-
he's
yeah,
approves.
totally.
He approves.
Totally. So I can't. So I'm in the back. Like, this is before 9/11. So now there's no way you can get away with the shit we were doing. So I'm like getting the sound. Like I had a remote mic, and then it transmitted back to the receiver, which I had on the camera. I couldn't get the bloody headphones to work, so I couldn't tell if it was working. I'm assuming it was working, but I couldn't tell. It was really frustrating. Whatever. I said, it's go time. It is what it is. So my dad's got a mic on him. He's getting wheeled up in the line. I'm at the back of the room with this little rinky-dink camera, and I'm like zooming in. I'm trying to get, because the audio is going to get it. I'm zooming in, and I see them get together, but I can't hear anything, right? So I'm assuming that everything's going swell. And my dad goes, well, I'm going to stall him as long as possible because he's going to have to sign 5 books or whatever the hell it was, right? So I was going to take it up extra time. So I'm back there, and I'm filming. I'm back there filming, and people kept walking in front of me. And I'm like, not get around these guys. Like, I'm zooming in between, and you know what I mean? And they got the interaction, and then I see Jimmy Carter look. Dude, it was like he's like he came into my space. Like he looked right into my eyeball. I was like, holy shit, I just got caught. And I reacted I pulled the rocker back and pulled the camera out like this. And I was like this. And I was thinking, shit, I could get jumped. I mean, the Secret Service, I don't know. Did I just do something illegal? I just like, why, And I was just like, I need to get the hell out of here. Like, so my dad gets whisks off, and we got it. And it's basically my dad saying, what about, you saw a UFO sighting? And my dad's voice is really weak. And Carter's like kind of leans forward because you weren't supposed to ask him any questions. But
Right.
there's a quadriplegic asking him.
Come on.
Yeah, he can't say no. Right. So he's like, hey, you saw a UFO, and he's like, yeah, I did see a UFO, and da 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 da, and he describes it, and then, what about when you're president, and huh? Like, and then Tim, who's a British guy, he's like, when you were president, did you look into it when you were president, like this? And he's like, yes, and that's when he scanned the room and saw me, right, with the camera, and he goes, yes. But there were a lot of different answers and not the right, blah, blah, blah.
Went
Like
in
basically,
politician
yeah,
mode.
I made inquiries and we weren't basically happy with what we got back. Something like that. It's in out of the blue. So that was interesting, So that's how I got. So I also got an interview with Ford, and
Mhm.
Penny Circle was his handler. And I was calling for 2 years, 3 years, every week, whatever, just keep going, persistence, right? And I had a roommate at the time. He was an engineer. He was older than me. And he goes, there's only one rule in this house. He goes, if I'm in that hot tub with a girl, you stay the hell out of,
It's an easy rule.
He never had a girl in the hot tub. Like the dude's just like always
if-
wanted, he
if.
always wanted, but it never happened. He's in the hot tub with a girl. And it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right?
This is like a UFO sighting.
I
You're like,
swear
this
to
never
you,
happened.
he's in the hot tub with a girl. Penny Circle calls me. The president's ready to talk to you. What? Like, now? She goes, yes, now. Holy shit. President Ford is going to, oh my God. Penny, would you mind terribly if I could just have a couple minutes to get ready for the interview? If that, okay, I'll let the president know. Click. Holy shit. President Ford is going to, so I run out. Tom, he's in the hot tub with his girl. I swear to you, I can't make this. You can't make this up. He goes, what did I tell you about when I'm in the hot tub? I know, but President Ford, he's called, yes, and I need a recording device. It's all in the last minute. So he leaps out of the hot tub naked as a jaybird, dripping water everywhere, running through the house naked, trying to help me get,
The girl's
I'm
just sitting there like,
oh
what?
my gosh, this is so funny, and we got Gerald, because Gerald Ford helped initiate congressional hearings, the first congressional hearings, right? After that landing case that happened in Michigan, or Ann Arbor, Michigan, and police saw it, and all kinds of residents saw it. It's a crazy case, and that's when the Air Force came out and said, "Well, could be swamp gas," and people were irate. Witnesses, a flying saucer landing, and you're looking at the damn saucer on the damn, and you're going to tell me I saw swamp gas, like. He said that was one of his biggest regrets, Dr. Hynix, when he said swamp gas like that. But that caused the first hearings because, he rattled the cage and they had hearings.
So what did Gerald Ford say when you spoke with him?
He said, yes, I did initiate the hearings.
Okay.
And then I said something like, when you were president, did you look at it? I no comment on that. I can't comment on that. I was like, well, did you look into it when basically, the implication was, yeah, I initiated the hearings. The explanation given was absolutely ridiculous. We deserve to know the truth. And when it comes to when I was president, I can't comment on that.
Did you explain to him the stakes? You're like, hey, this guy just got to have a hot tub.
Yeah.
With a 9, okay? With a hot woman.
I know.
You don't understand.
So funny. I mean, if people knew the backstories, I have so many backstories, how it got in certain interviews. Like, I could tell you, we could go on for weeks of some really funny. Like I tell people say to me, we've been trying for 50 years to get that witness to come forward. I say, just put me in the room with him, okay? Yeah. Just get me in the room. And it's because I will make that magic happen. Like I said, I have a lot of deficiencies, but that's not one of them. Yeah.
What's up, guys? We're going to take a break really quick because I have a story to tell you. Fun fact, after you have a child, your testosterone naturally goes down. It's a way for you to become more empathetic and more in touch and protect your kid and stuff. And I didn't really believe that. But then I had a baby a year ago and I started to feel it. Around 3 o'clock would roll around and I would get more tired. I wasn't really sleeping that great because we just had a baby. And I was drinking more coffee and I started getting anxious and I was like, this is not working. I was like, should I just do TRT? I know a lot of guys when they hit 30, 40, they're just ripping TRT. So I was looking into it and I was like, it affects your fertility. I might want to have some more kids. So I was like, all right, there must be a way I can do this that's more natural and just support my testosterone. So I hit my buddy David who does the ads and I was like, is there anyone that's out there doing any of this kind of stuff? And he was like, oh, you should check out Mars Men. Mars Men right here is a natural testosterone booster. This is going to just basically support your testosterone using a bunch of supplements and natural ingredients that are going to make your testosterone be what it's supposed to be, okay? Don't even think about TRT because, again, it can be overkill. You're going to be injecting your body, and it can also shut down your body's natural production of testosterone. But using this stuff, Tungat Ali, Shilajit, vitamin D, zinc, boron, all the natural stuff that is going to be supporting your healthy T levels and helping your stamina and giving you more energy throughout the day. And honestly, it's great. I've only been trying it for, a couple weeks now. And I want to do a before and after testosterone test and see how much more my testosterone boosted. 91% of guys reported feeling higher energy, and the reviews on this are absolutely amazing. It's made in the USA, third-party tested, and there is a 90-day money-back guarantee. So there's literally no risk. You can try it for, 3 months, and if it's not for you, they will get you your money back. And for a limited time, the listeners of this program, this is a crazy deal, by the way. Most brands don't do this. You're going to get 60% off for life and 3 free gifts when you use the code CAMP at mengotomars.com. That is men, M-E-N, go to Mars, M-A-R-S.com, and use the code CAMP at checkout. And after your purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please say that you heard about them from Camp Gagnon, that we sent you there. It really helps us out. Mars Men is great. It is a natural support for your testosterone. Look, you can buy all of these supplements separately, or you can just go to Mars Men and get it all in one case. Now, let's get back to the show.
Also, I need to know, what video did you show Logan Paul?
Oh, yeah. So that's funny.
Speaking of backstories.
Yeah. So I was making my first UFO documentary, and I touched on Area 51 because at the time in the 90s, Area 51 was all, people were doing guided tours, and there were certain vantage points that you can go up to. And there was a guy named Chuck Clark who wrote this book called The UFO Area 51 and something handbook. It was basically a guide to tourists that wanted to come explore Area 51. There were certain areas that you can go. And he had a pretty dramatic sighting of something that was exhibiting some sort of extraordinary technology, this orb thing that could shoot around in the sky and stop and this and that. And he saw it on multiple occasions. Pretty smart guy. And I was kind of interested, activity going on at the base. And so I was interviewing him, an ongoing friendship. And he one day he calls me up and he goes, "Hey James, Chuck Clark here." He goes, I got something I need to show you. I lived like 12 hours away. I was like, "Well, what are you talking about?" He goes, "I can't really talk to you about it, but your jaw's gonna hit the floor." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Really? I'll be right there." Canceled all my plans, jumped in the car, shoot out there to Rachel, Nevada. And he pops in, we go to his double wide, and he pops in this VHS tape. And it was a week old, maybe, at the time. What Logan Paul had seen apparently was like 30 years old or whatever, 26, VHS tape playing over and over and over. But what it was two guys taking a road trip, just as many of us have done, out there, Little Alien and Area 51 and go up to the gate and da-da-da-da and goofing off, listening to road music. And then all of a sudden they're parked and they're arguing in the car and there's something over the top of them. And this is what I saw. What I remembered was, which was unusual, was that the light source that was shooting into the car was, it was a very fluid movement. Like it was on some sort of pendulum or something, because the shadows were kind of fluidly moving on the inside of the car. And they were kind of arguing back and forth. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I've never seen, like, there has to be a light source hanging from a wire or, I don't know, something smooth just doing this, because that's what the shadows were doing on the inside. And then one of the kids is like, I'm going out. And the guy's like, no, don't get out of the car. It's over the top or something like that. And he goes out. And there was a disc. Let's see, if the screen is this big, I'd say it's about that big in the middle. And it was a disc shaped craft that was like kind of orangey yellow. And the part that really got me, and it was crystal clear, like there was no dropout. I mean, this was made like a week earlier, was that it did kind of this, like it kind of was unstable, like a boat on the water. It was just kind of wobbling like this. And I was like, I looked over at Chuck and I was like, holy shit, where did you get this? And he was like kind of secretive about it. He's like, well, these guys came out and they were hanging out the Little Alien and then they left and then they came back all excited an hour later and they'd filmed this thing out by the black mailbox. And I was like, dude, you need to put me in touch with these guys. I need this video. For whatever reason, Chuck was really weird about that whole side. And he goes, I promised them I wouldn't give, I said, oh, fair enough, but you're in touch with them. Give them my number. Like, let me talk to them. Tell them I'd be willing to raise whatever, He was super secretive and went on for at least 10 years and maybe 15 years. And I asked him every year, put me in touch, blah, blah, blah. I was going to break him down some point. And Chuck goes, if you ask me one more time, I'm never speaking to you again. And of course I asked him one more time. And now he won't talk to me ever again. But then I found out, like through somebody had heard me talking about it, maybe on Joe Rogan or I don't remember which show I was on, but heard me talking about it, and they contacted me. He's like, I'm a private investigator and I find people. He's like, you mind if I said, dude, have at it. Don't use my name. This guy doesn't want to talk to me. So he finds him. He's in the Arizona desert somewhere. And Chuck's like, yeah, I still have the VHS tape. If you want to see it, you know, of course, now it's like almost 30 years old and it's played about 10 million times. So it's got a lot of dropout and stuff. And so I guess I went on Logan Paul's show and I was telling Logan about it. And Logan's like, I'm going to go see that. So I hooked him up with a private investigator. And I guess Logan's talked about it since then. Logan went with a big block of cash and he put cameras on him and filmed what was on the screen. And at which point, I think at some point, Chuck Clark found out about that and threatened Logan, like, I'll sue the shit out of you. And like, And Logan's like, the tape was really broken down. There's lots of dropout. It wasn't as clear as anything that you described. But, you know, he goes, yeah, but I did see that wobble. It was really, that was the weirdest part, was the way it wobbled. And, I mean, I went as far as I could with it, right? But then I was out at Area 51 just like maybe a year or two ago. I got invited for a conference at Las Vegas, and we're going to go do a night watch. And I was on the board of the night watch. So I talked to the owners of the Little Alien, Connie, her name is, and she's odd. I've known her forever. And I said, Connie, you remember that UFO? Oh, are you kidding me? Of course I remember that tape. We all watched it 1,000 times. We watched it for decades. Like, yeah, we all talked about it. I was like, well, gosh, like, why is he being so secretive? It was like, well, there's a backstory as to how it got, you know, no. It's like, it's complicated because it's going to expose, you know. I was like, yeah, but, you know, it's been, and so she's like, she goes, James, do you honestly think we're that stupid where we're not going to make a digital copy of it? Do you really think we're that stupid? So I was like looking at her like, shit. So they have so there's a digital copy somewhere, according to her, you know, and Chuck, so I contacted George Knapp and I said, George, dude, you're investigating Area 51. You've been going out there for all this time. Like, I'm telling you, I saw this tape. This is really good stuff. I see UFO stuff all the time. Like, particularly if you can get the master, because apparently the master was on Beta SP that was made a copy onto VHS. Like this guy that works at this TV show or TV network. And George goes, oh, yeah. No, I did some stories on Chuck Clark. I know Chuck Clark well, blah, blah. I said, well, dude, go get it. Go after this because I'm telling you, it's good. And he's like, oh, yeah, I will. Yeah, I will. And then, you know, a week would go by. I text Knapp, hey, are you, you know, and he's like, no, not yet. I'm really busy. Another week. And then I said, George, with all due respect, buddy, I'm handing this to you. Like, please, you got, you know, there's information on this. Like, and he goes, you're not my fucking wife. And I love the guy. I really do. And he wasn't being mean to me, but he was like, stop acting like you're my fucking wife. Okay. Leave me alone. I'll get to it. Like, just back off. And I was like, okay. And as it happens, the private investigator got the name of the guy who gave it to him and has the original master. And guess what? He died like 2 weeks before we got to him.
No.
Yeah. So then we contacted his son because we wanted to there's got to be the master, which was going to be great, you know? And his son's like, my dad just died and you guys want to talk about a UFO tape? Like, fuck you guys, you know? How could you be so And I felt bad, of course, you know, but I was like, I was worried about it going in the trash or something. I was like, I wanted to make him aware of the fact that his dad had the master, you know? But if George had gone to him, when I told him to go to him, he would have gotten the name. The guy was in Vegas and he would have probably gotten the master.
Damn.
So it's like, ugh.
I wish you were his wife.
I know. It's like you slip between the cracks. It's like, yeah, I know. Yeah, that's him talking about, yeah. So, I don't know, man. It's frustrating. But look, the Calvine UFO shot, I waited almost 20 years for that. In fact, I probably did wait 20 years. Maybe I waited longer. And we got it.
So at this point, what does disclosure even look like, right? Like, I feel like we would need some type of massive event because, you know, there's photos that come out much later. There's all this, you know, sort of circumstantial military evidence. What would it take for the average person to be like, yeah, of course?
Thought about that a lot. One of the things that we're going to do soon, very early next year, is we're going to we're going to have an event in Washington, D.C. with a number of firsthand witnesses, both American and Brazilian. And we're going to have them introduce themselves at the podium, speak for a few minutes, and then say, make a plea to the executive branch to provide immunity so they can violate their NDAs and participate in open congressional hearings, maybe on the Senate, the House, or both, and give the details needed to verify the following claims: street addresses, names, where the locations of some of this materials are. And then it's in the hands of the executive branch. If they want to do it and they want to push for transparency, like whatever you think of the current administration, they've got the power to do it. And they talk about wanting transparency and more openness. So, we're going to do that. I think there's another effort. There's that documentary Age of Disclosure that's out right now. It's coming out today, I think. That's got more high-level government and military officials in history, all talking, not only talking about the existence of the phenomenon, but talking about the existence of the legacy UAP program. That's incredible. Like, I mean, you got like Clapper and Rubio and Gillibrand all talking about a crash retrieval program and the president of the United States being out of the loop. I mean, that's happening like right now. That's dropping today.
Yeah.
So that's significant. And people
Yeah.
can get frustrated and be like, I'm so tired of hearing these stories and I need the evidence. It's like, hey, we're with you here. Be patient. This is not a 100-yard dash. We're running a marathon.
Do you think it'll happen 10 years?
I think it'll happen sooner. I do. I could be wrong. As someone who's been doing this for over 30 years, I've never seen this.
This is the closest you felt we've
No
been
question.
to disclosure.
No question. They're not going to put the genie back in the bottle. I don't think so.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this could be the right administration, right? There's
Could be.
a scandal pops up, be like, hey, you could move
How
off
about
the
this
scandal.
UFO thing over here?
Throw a little bit of this out. We forget about any of these
I don't know
files.
anything about Epstein, but this UFO stuff. Like,
Wow.
yeah, so we're going to try, and a lot of other people are trying to. There's a lot going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot going on. There's some stuff, man, that I hope one day I'll be able to talk about, because you remember that moment where I was telling you about the governor when I was pinching my leg?
Mhm.
I've had a number of those that I can't talk about because I can't, my sources,
Right.
but people that I've met with that really know what they're talking about. Like, I came to them, I hunted them down and slowly got them to meet with me. And then we go off the record and just talk about stuff. And I'm like, ugh.
Are you signed to NDAs?
No, but no, they trust me.
Mm.
Yeah, they trust me. I mean, come on, I've been at it forever. They know who I am.
Fair.
And there's other intel folks that say you can trust James. And it's like, not that I'm trying to be secretive about it because, I know this. It's like, hey man, I'm going to take what I can get. You know what I mean? And it's whatever point I can disseminate the information, but to have the level of confirmation that I've had on a number of occasions. Like I went in to meet the heads of Arrow recently.
Right.
Or I had a special badge, and had to get full deep cavity search to get in there, and walking to a skiff, where I'm coming up to this glass tube door that opens on one side, and I walk in, and then another one opens, go in, full take all my electronics out, put them in a locker,
Pat it down.
Yeah. Oh, dude, are you kidding me? I went through so many metal detectors.
No wires,
Oh,
nothing.
hell no. And then took me into the skiff, and there I was in the skiff with the new heads of Arrow, people from the OSI.
Wow.
I swear on my life. Yeah, and I'm sitting there talking to these guys, and I'm like, you got to throw us a bone. We're not going away.
Mm-hmm.
This is, that we're ultimately, I know the vast majority of UFOs can be explained in, prosaic, misidentified, this, that, the other thing. I might have even thrown in swamp gas for fun. And, but there's a residual core, 10 to 15% that are most probably NHI. And they didn't say no. They just sat there, and the guy looks at me and he goes, James, I can't part my hair without the DOD's approval. John Kosklowski, the new head of Arrow. And you can quote me on that. He's basically saying, no matter what I find,
It's above me.
my hands are tied. I can't, yeah, Congress put me in charge, but the DOD is controlling me.
Wow.
Yeah. And we were talking about Rua, we were talking about Socorro, we were talking about Varginha, like, and they weren't just sitting there going, "Yeah, this is all nonsense." They were listening. They knew.
How long till the men in black knock on your door?
They're probably flying over me with satellites.
Do you think you're being tracked at all?
There's no question. No question.
But you've never had a direct interaction where some guy in a suit.
Well,
was
it's really funny. I was hanging out with a bunch of FBI agents at a premiere for Disclosure a couple days ago, and we were like talking. I was there with somebody from the New York Times, and we were talking. They're all in suits. They're typical, exactly like you'd expect, right? We're from the agency like this, and we're all talking. And then I was like, yeah, because, blah, blah, blah. We're all having drinks because they're off. When I was talking about, X, Y, and Z, and he goes, oh, no, we know exactly who you are. Not in a threatening way, but like, oh, yeah, we follow. Yeah, isn't that funny? I was loud about that because, yeah, they're paying damn right. They're paying attention. Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, hello.
Who's this guy talking to? Is he talking to our guys? Like, I would want to know.
It wasn't in a threatening way, but they wouldn't be doing their job not to be paying attention to people. Yeah, for sure. I think Dan Farah has probably got more to worry about than me. I mean, if I got my hands on the definitive piece of footage, I'd have something to worry about. No question.
When you say the definitive piece of footage
of a captured alien landing, that would be a problem for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that exists.
Oh, no question.
And you've spoken to people that have seen it.
Yes. Multiple people.
The same piece of footage?
Different. Some, yeah, different. Some same, some different.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now,
and I believe it.
Yeah. How do you know that
I'd like to get my sticky little fingers on it.
How do you know that you're not being utilized?
Because I'm in the field.
And you're seeking
I'm in
them
the field.
out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm talking to people that, tracking them down. I mean, Varginha, for instance, knocking on doors.
Right.
16 years now.
Do you feel like people have ever tried to utilize you? Intelligence coming across, being like, hey, James, we got this thing you would love to see. You would love to talk about this.
Well, I can't go into the specifics, but I did look at one of the Air Force Office of Special Investigations guy, and I said, if you put this out, you're going to have a big problem. This is bullshit. That's what I said to him. And I don't think he ever put it out.
Wow.
But it was something they were going to try to explain for an instant, because I interviewed the guy that originally shot the footage. I know all about it. And I was like, no, that's not going to bode well. That's what I said.
Like explanation that was
you're gonna
misinformation.
basically slap these people across the face.
You're gonna do another alien costume press conference thing.
Don't do that.
Another swamp gas moment.
Yeah, he's like, because they wanted my opinion. Like, what do you think? Because they knew I knew the case well.
Right.
Yeah, and I can't go into that because they asked me not to. But they showed me some footage that they dug up, and I was like, no, that's nothing to do with that.
In your follow up to Varginha,
yeah,
what are some of the smoking guns you could say that's in that doc that'll come out that you're most excited for people to see?
First time in history of the phenomenon that we have firsthand eyewitness testimony of direct communication with a captured alien in custody. And it just so happens it's the guy that's the neurosurgeon at the lead hospital where this thing was dropped off. So you have all this like other sightings, transport, all the stuff that's going on that all leads to the hospital. And now we have the lead, the guy that ran all three, the head of all three, neurosurgeon, head of all three hospitals.
And did he do an autopsy?
No. That was alive. The being was alive.
And he did an examination.
His partner did the examination. He just sat in the room with it for about 3 or 4 minutes, face to face, before the military burst in and took it.
Did he describe communication?
Yes.
Telepathic?
Yes.
Did he just disclose what was said?
A little bit, yeah. He talked about the fact that it despite it being that the eyes, all the communication happened with the eyes, that it was an extremely advanced intelligence, far more advanced from anything on Earth, and that it could read everything in his mind, not in a bad way, but that even though it was in captivity, it had full control of the room.
Typical gray.
No, it was, the people that encountered the creature on the outside, it had brown, oily skin. It was suffering in the heat, and big red eyes, little, I don't want to call them horns, like little lump protrudences on the head here, spindly arms, spindly legs, relatively feeble, bigger head, big eyes, slit for mouth. I don't know about the nose. No, I don't think any ears, or maybe holes for ears.
The smell?
Yes, I mean, the outside, I think the outside, but I didn't hear the smell when it was in captivity. I don't know if that was a reaction to the heat or being scared or some sort of mechanism. I really don't know. It's all speculation because, when it was outside and it was scared and it was really hot, like the girls that came within 10 feet of it, all three of these girls, Katya, Liliana, and Valkyria, all said that it was cowering. It was frightened. It was feeble. It was suffering, and it wanted help. Yeah. Yeah. And it was brown and it had that odor.
Wow.
But and then we heard it from a number of other doctors as well. But it's a long story, but there's like there was sightings, there was capture, there's military blockades, there's crash sites, there's I mean, it's a big story, and there are a lot of moving pieces and a lot of different people involved.
Wow.
It's a really good case. In fact, I think it's the best. In fact, most people within the community will say this is the definitive case. This is probably the case that's gonna prove that UAP, we're dealing with non-human intelligence.
Now, how much pressure was on this neurosurgeon to not speak?
It's a good question. I think there are a number of factors that play into that. For starters, he's working on people's brains. He's representing the hospital. There's pressure from the military, I was told, on just about everybody to keep quiet about it.
Like he was spoken.
But it's not a career enhancement move. I don't know. I'd have to find out if it was just to the whole hospital staff or him directly. I don't know. But yeah, those issues are addressed. And everybody, 99.9% of the people, whether they're civilian, fire, military, or just witnesses, like for instance, the girls that came into contact, the Men in Black showed up at their house. So in fact, that was one of the first all in on Men in Black reporting that I decided to go with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in Moment of Contact, the first version. The mother of the girls was like, yeah, then these men in suits showed up and they were really intimidating. I'm like, oh my God, here they are again. And they really tried to offer them money, get your daughters to say they were lying, get them to say, and she's like, my daughters are not liars. I'm not going to do it. You can take this briefcase of money, you can leave and go to live somewhere else, your life out. And the mother refused to do that. And they were quite adamant. They were quite insistent, put a lot of pressure on her. And they were poking around with other witnesses and getting them to, this meeting never happened. We were never here, like that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's a really great case. And what makes it such a great case, there's so many people involved, and it's recent enough where the vast majority of people are still alive.
Right.
And they're of the retirement age, which makes a big incentive, less to lose for people to come forward.
Right. Now, they described it as the devil.
Well, the girls did. Well, they didn't know. They had red eyes and it stank, right?
Right. You
And
can
they're
understand
highly
their
religious.
perspective. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I got military folks that said, that were directly involved with the government UAP program. They were bringing direct evidence of craft, unknown origin, and they were told, oh, that's devil activity. I don't want to get it away from me. Yeah. People within the government, people within the Air Force. Harry Reid told me that too.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a very right wing, highly religious. This is all the devil. Get it away from me. Yeah, and Harry Reid said he couldn't even get people. He couldn't even get people to look at the evidence. They were like, it's demonic.
Interesting.
So
I mean,
I
I
don't know.
get that. I grew up religious, and this
Yeah.
is what my mom would describe it as. So I
Yeah.
understand.
Oh, it's a big universe, and there's a lot going on.
Do you think there's multiple competing alien races?
I have no idea. I
'Cause
really
this
don't.
doesn't
I
look
can tell
like-
you that different people see different things. That's an okay depiction. That's an okay depiction.
But it doesn't
That
look
one
like
looks more evil.
a typical gray, right? Grays
No, it
have
doesn't like a typical gray. I mean, the only thing that the big eyes, the communication through the eyes, the spindly body, that I'm told right there on the right. Yeah, that one. That was done by a woman named Betty Rodriguez. And that was based on firsthand eyewitnesses. She worked directly with the three girls that came within 10 feet of it. And that was done in 1996. And apparently that's a really good depiction of what it looked like.
So the fact that it doesn't look like a typical gray would lead one to believe like there's competing forces, something. I mean, one
People
thing.
see different things. I mean, if you look at what Travis Walton reported, he had spindly little gray objects, but also beings that look like us.
Yeah, the Nordics is always an interesting one. Why Nordics?
I have no idea.
You've heard people
course.
describe this
Yeah.
firsthand.
Yeah.
I find that to be the most unique, sort of strange thing. That's like, yeah, aliens, also Swiss or Swedish, and it's like, what?
I
Like,
know,
yeah,
I know.
blonde hair,
it's-
blue eyes.
we're getting into speculation at this point. I don't know.
Yeah,
I really don't. I don't know what the hell's going on. I'd like to know what's going on, and I'm coming to the point in my career where I'm probably not going to know what's going on. It's real. The phenomenon is real, and they're here,
Mhm.
and they're intelligent, and they probably have an agenda, and they're probably different races. I'm just guessing. I don't know.
If you had to say more or less peaceful or not peaceful,
It's a good question. Yes, I would say if they were here to do us harm, we would have known it. But I did talk to a number of very high level people, very high level, and I said, I've heard that the bigger picture, not the big picture, because I don't think anybody has the big picture, but the bigger picture, I heard it's a little scary. And a couple of them were like, yeah, I could see that. So I said, well, poking a little further, like, scary how? Like, intent. Okay, so what? Their intentions are to harm us? No, just the intent. And that's as far as I got. And it's an ongoing, like, I'm going to meet with those individuals and see if I can pry a little more out of them. But I got to know them a little bit to get trust. And
right? Now, so much of your career has been journalistic and sort of recounting other people's stories.
Yeah.
Do you think at a certain point in your career you will put together more or less your thesis, your worldview? Do you
I
feel
don't
like
have one.
Do you feel like you have any type of construct of like more or less, like, these things are coming from a different planet? Or are they interdimensional?
I don't know.
Multiverse?
I don't.
Humans from the past that
I
have
really-
evolved in advanced
Could it
consciousness?
be? Could be all of the above. I just
Multiple different things happening simultaneously?
I just don't know. The more I learn, the more I don't know, and the more
Hmm.
confused I am.
Hmm.
It's real. They're here. I put my life on it. But what their agenda is, what their origins are, I haven't got a clue. I really don't.
Using humans as slaves to mine our earth for precious materials.
I think that anybody out there saying they know what's going on doesn't know what's going on. I don't believe it.
Mm.
I don't believe it. But the one thing that I did determine over the years, and this is based on countless stories that I've heard, if they wanted to reveal themselves openly, they would just hover over the Macy's Day Parade and it would be game over. But they
Mhm.
don't do that. When they returned Travis, they didn't take him to where they took him. They didn't take him where they found him initially. The super remote mountain range. He wouldn't have made it. He would have died.
Mhm.
I've been there. It's very remote. They dropped him off right on the outskirts. If one is going to believe the story as it happened, they dropped him off on the outskirts of town in an area that would minimize any potential of their exposure. So they did it like down in a valley. So they went down below into this little dip right on the outskirts of town near a phone box. So it's like, if you are to believe that story is true, which I do, but I don't, your audience, that's fine. They cared about his well-being
Mhm.
enough to do something. I think he got in the force field coincidentally as this thing was spooling up its energies, whatever, and he got somehow exposed to that. I think it was, they helped him. I think he died, maybe. And then they dropped him off a week later. They dropped him off in an area that would minimize any potential exposure.
And what does that discretion indicate? The
They
fact that
said
they're
they
being
cared
discreet.
enough. They cared enough, but they didn't want to expose themselves. They don't. The phenomenon, sure, it'll go. There does some pretty bold moves every now and again. Phoenix Lights, that's a pretty bold move.
Mhm.
A lot of people saw that thing.
Yeah.
And they flew over O'Hare Airport 2005, I think.
Grounded the flights.
Terminal I-17 United Airlines, a disc-shaped object hovered over for a couple minutes over the terminal. And then when it left, it punched a donut-shaped hole in the clouds. Yeah, and apparently there's a photograph of it somewhere, but it hasn't surfaced yet. But a bunch of
Zimbabwe is pretty.
Zimbabwe is pretty incredible. Yeah, very incredible. Pretty bold. Yeah. Westall, 1966, Melbourne,
Mhm.
Australia.
Yep.
300 plus people.
Even Rendlesham Forest,
Rendlesham Forest is good. More of a military thing. That was a joint U.S.-British base
but pretty obvious.
housing nuclear weapons, and they were shooting beams of light into the weapons storage area.
Yeah. One of the theories that I've heard that I find interesting is that there are more advanced in terms of consciousness and their understanding of how the universe sort of operates, and that they're interested in bringing us into that, right? This is sort of like Star Trek-y. But there's an interest in, communicating with humankind, but that we're not evolved enough
Yeah, we're barbaric.
in
We're too busy
comparison
killing each other.
with these nukes.
We're such idiots.
And they have such a concern with nukes, like the fact that there's all like these sightings happen around nuclear testing.
We're like cavemen with nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
A bunch of cavemen. I interviewed this astronaut, Story Musgrave, and I remember looking into his eyes, and like, this guy is like I don't know, he's a brain surgeon or a heart surgeon. He flies the space shuttle. I mean, he was like, whew, he made me look like a lazy, good for nothing, like bag of, just like, I'm looking into his eyes, and his eyes are these like sparkly electric, like the guy was just on all the time, like looking into this. And he goes, yeah, James, I just love I love geography. When I'm flying the space shuttle, sometimes I just look down, and I just look down at Earth, and I think about geography. Oh, that's going on here. And then I think about all the wars going on, how hostile we are as a race. Can't even get along with each other. How are we going to look at an alien race? How are alien races going to look at us? And he said this, like, I'm going to release that interview sometime soon, because it didn't make it in the phenomenon, but he just talked about the fact that as someone to observe the Earth from that perspective, from space, and look down, and all, invisible borders and all that stuff, and then we're all fighting and killing each other, and we're so hostile as a race, He's like, would you want to make contact with us? Because I sure damn in hell wouldn't.
Well, a lot of astronauts describe that. There's a name for it. I forget exactly. It's like
that epiphany that they have.
Yeah, they will get outside of our atmosphere and look at Earth and be like,
Edgar Mitchell talked about that with me.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Right? Like, we have one tiny little planet.
They should send up all the world leaders in a
Exactly.
Bezos, Jeff Bezos, you can do this.
Yes.
Come on, baby.
Don't send Katy
Free
Perry.
ride to space.
Send Putin.
One-way ticket.
Yeah. That might work.
We're doing just fine down here.
Yes. Either that or make them all do mushrooms. Either one.
Mushrooms are good.
Yeah.
I think it's
Like,
a great idea. Just
every
dip
president that's
dip
elected.
It in the tea.
Yeah.
We're
You
having
get
a lovely
dosed.
tea party.
Yeah. 5 grams. Just see something, you come back, and you go,
Right?
you know what, we should chill.
We're all good. Let's dismantle the nukes.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, Christos, you had a question. I don't want to dispel. Christos has been dying to ask.
Okay, go for it.
Do you have a thought on whether aliens visit us when we're about to use nuclear weapons?
It's a great question, whether aliens visit us when we're about to use nuclear weapons. So I remember when we were making the phenomenon, and a really good friend of mine and fellow editor, Lance Mungia, at the time I didn't quite understand what he was doing, but he's like, James, we got all this historic sightings that are happening here. Let's get a map. And let's put the map on the wall, and we'll put pins, and we'll film it every time there's a sighting in a particular area, historically. And I was like thinking to myself, oh, fucking map, dude. This map? Like, he's like, come on, man, just humor me. Let's just, So we put a map on the wall, and we were putting pins in all the different places. And we looked. Well, guess where all the pins were? They were all around Trinity Site. Trinity Site was the first detonation of an atomic bomb in 1945. And is it a coincidence that all these sightings were happening all around that space when we were detonating? To me, that doesn't. And so that was sort of an organic way of, Then when I met with Senator Harry Reid, who's helped with Senator Inouye and Senator Stevens to launch OSAP and then ATIP, the UAP investigatory arm of the government, we did an interview. It was really funny because it was a defining moment of my career where I got the former Senate Majority Leader, Harry Reid. Thank you, George Knapp. And he arrives, and he was like, oh, I got 47 minutes, and he's got security, people. And I remember this big fucking dude looking at me, and I wanted to get a picture with, it's a big moment for me. Harry Reid, like, holy shit, he's a household name. And I kind of walked over to Senator Reid when he first got there, and I see the guy kind of looking at me like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, can I take a picture? So I took a picture with him, and we do the interview. And then I'm like, shit, I need a B-roll shot. The two of us walking. So I was like, oh God, Senator Reed, I know you got to leave. He's like, all right, we got to be quick. We got 2 minutes. So I was like, all right. I looked over at my buddy Dave, who's operating the camera, and I said, Dave, leave the sound gear. Who cares? Let's go. We got 2 minutes. So I got walking the hallway like twice with him, and I figured, well, hey, I'm sitting there walking with Senator Reed. I'm going to ask him a question. Might as well get one in. Why didn't I ask him this question when the cameras were rolling earlier? I said, what, during that 10-year investigation, what was one of the more astonishing aspects of what you uncovered? And he goes, them disabling our nukes, flying over extremely sensitive nuclear. I was like, holy shit, this just came from the former Senate Majority Leader? Wow. Then I thought back when I was like in the edit room, and we were putting pins in, it was all around where we detonated the first atomic bomb. And I was like, shit, there's got to be a correlation. There has to be. So I went back to the drawing board in the film, and I contacted Richard, Bob Hastings, is it? The guy that wrote UFOs and Nukes.
Mm-hmm.
And I contacted him and I said, hey, I told him about the interview I just did with Senator Reed. And I was like, you're not going to believe it. We've all kind of suspected, but this connection. And he's like, oh my God, he said that. I said, yeah. So I want to do a deep dive into these cases. And I know you're the leading guy. Robert Hastings, thank you. And he goes, James, my health is really poor. Take all of my materials and have at it. You can have it all. So I put together a segment in The Phenomenon with all these different cases that have happened where these UFOs were. So there undoubtedly there's a connection there. Undoubtedly.
Would you cooperate with the foreign government if they had a good faith attempt at disclosure?
Yeah, I would.
Like if Russia, I mean, they're doing, nuclear testing.
I was in
China.
Russia. I met with like cosmonaut in Russia, in Star City, Russia. I met with generals there in the 90s, and there was an open effort to want to start a dialogue with the United States. And they thought, funny enough, they thought I was Fox News because my last name is Fox. And the translator goes, just let it go. Like, let them think that you're, red carpet, holding the airplanes for us, police escorts. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is a global cooperation to keep this suppressed.
Well,
because that's one thought, right? Why doesn't Russia come out and say, well, we've seen him, China's,
I think it boils down to the technology.
We're not the only nation with retrieval.
Yeah, no question. No, we're not. Yeah, and I've talked to people that have seen some of the evidence from Russia firsthand. Again, I've talked about age of disclosure. I think they're really starting to talk about the race to whoever can harness this technology first. I know this sounds crazy to you, especially if you don't even think UFOs exist. I get it. But if they do have this stuff, and if they can harness this technology, that's going to be a huge advantage. And so that would be one of the primary reasons for secrecy, national security, because we don't want the Russians to know how much progress we've made and vice versa. Like whoever gets this stuff first is like, wow, rock and roll. They don't look at it like the philosophical implications. We're not alone. Isn't that beautiful? Like group hug,
Yeah.
Didgeridoo.
They're still on domination time.
Yeah.
Has America successfully reverse engineered it?
Sometimes I think a little bit, and sometimes I think not. I really don't know.
Do you think Bob Lazar's testimony is as legitimate as people say?
I think that Bob Lazar believes everything he's saying, and he's an extraordinary individual. I met him in the 90s when he was first coming out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was at a conference. I was in my 20s, and I saw him, and I was like, oh, Bob Lazar. So I'd heard about him, right? And I was like, ran over to him. And I was like, Mr. Lazar, and I don't know what to make it. This is all new to me. I was like getting kind of, I was like, my dad thought I was crazy. And I said, I just want to thank you for coming forward. And he looked at me and he goes, I didn't have a choice. And that was it. And then that was my only time I ever met him.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't have a choice, is what he said.
Wow.
I had to come forward for survival, I guess. I don't know. But it's like, there's interesting aspects. Like you try to completely debunk him, and then George Knapp, who I trust implicitly, George Knapp's like, not so fast. And there was this, and there was that.
He was at Los Alamos.
Yes, he was at Los Alamos. We found his name in this book. There's another person that remembers him being there. It's complicated.
Mm-hmm.
It's complicated. You had talked about earlier, like, for instance, let's say it's true, okay? maybe, just maybe they expose him to some real stuff, and they expose him to some not so real stuff, thinking that this guy is probably the kind of guy that's going to leak this shit, that's going to go public.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just gauge the general interest of the public, or maybe we give some reality and some stuff that's not true, and we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that happened with him. Maybe. Maybe some of the stuff is real and some of the stuff isn't real, and that's not his fault.
Right. But what he's sharing,
he believes.
Is
No
his
question.
experience.
You meet him, and it's like, and he'll even say, I don't know. I'm not sitting here saying I totally endorse everything.
sure.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a quick dismiss this guy.
Yeah. Well, James, I could speak with you all day. This is fantastic. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. This is
been a pleasure.
truly a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
Where can I see the new doc? How can I access it?
It's called Moment of Contact, New Revelations of Alien Encounters. It'll be released December 22nd on Amazon and Apple and Google Play. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'm found on X, James C. Fox. And I try my best to respond to as many people as I can. And I always post all the links, all the information about my films, anything relevant will be there.
And if people want to get up to speed prior to that doc dropping,
watch The Phenomenon. You can watch the program. You can watch them for free. They're on YouTube. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
But you can watch them for free on YouTube Movies if you don't mind watching a couple commercials.
Well, James, thank you so much. This has been truly a pleasure, and I look forward to doing it again.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
What's up, guys? Today's episode is sponsored by a little podcast called Camp Gagnon. Yeah, you might have heard of it, okay? It's a brilliant new podcast that's been around for a few years that's, basically just a host, just a guy in his 20s trying to figure out life, and he explores the most interesting, controversial topics from around the world, everything from conspiracy to military to, aliens to religion to history, everything you can imagine, okay? So go ahead and subscribe to Camp Gagnon, all right? And you can also check out History Camp, where that show and that handsome host dive into all the most interesting historical topics, and then Religion Camp, where they dive into all the religion topics as well. And by supporting, subscribing, and liking the videos, you really help me chase my dreams. You help everyone in this studio eat, and you keep the fire burning.